A very good afternoon, dear friends, dear students. I am CA Aparna Chauhan. Welcome you to CA's Success at CA exam organized by Board of Study for final paper for direct tax laws and international taxation for the May 25 examination. It is not only for May 25 examination, those who are going to attempt for November 25 examination can also go through this session. This would be equally relevant for them also. Now, since the paper 4, that is on direct tax laws and international taxation, it's keep on changing. It's a very crucial subject, one of the crucial subject of your curriculum. This subject, as you know, that tax laws, direct tax laws or its indirect tax laws, keeps on changing every year. The direct tax laws specifically changes with the passing of the Annual Finance Act. Right? Along with that, according to the Income Tax Act also undergo change. Other than this, amendments made by the Finance Act in the Income Tax Act itself, there are certain notifications or circulars are being issued by the CBDT or the central government to make certain changes in the law, direct tax laws. Since this subject basically to what exactly is relevant for you, that for every attempt, what is the relevant Finance Act is applicable for a particular attempt is really very important for you. As you know, so accordingly for May 25 examination, if you ask what is the applicable Finance Act for May 25 examination. Say student, what I have been planned how to take this session today, how we will be proceed for this session is that first I'm just going to take this general queries, because being a tax paper, it's really very essential that I should be inform you what are the relevant Finance Act, what are the publications you must go through for doing your preparation for the examination and all those things. Then we will be covering the sectionized weightage, basically how to prepare for the paper, what are the strategies to be used for getting a good marks, how to do the study for these papers basically. After that, what I have planned, since the amendments are really very important for you, they are very essential for examination, then we will be covering we will be giving you touching upon some of the amendments as well. Then what I am asked you that what is the applicable Finance Act? You must all be knowing what is the applicable Finance Act for May 25 examination, since this is March month and you are going to appear in the May exams, right? But still some students, specifically those who are going to appear in the November exams, they are having some doubt कि now the Finance Bill 25 have come, right? And the income tax bill also come presented in the Lok Sabha. So whether they are also relevant for you, so for that it's strictly no. The amendments made by the Finance Bill 2025, even though if it's being enacted as an act, it is not at all relevant for May exams as well as for November 25 exams. Okay, so the income tax bill now is being presented, right? So that bill is also not relevant for nor for the May examination or nor for the November 25 examination. So for May 25 and November 25 examination, the relevant Finance Act, that is the Income Tax Act, as amended by the Finance Number 2 Act 2024 is relevant. Right? Accordingly, the relevant assessment year, see the concept of assessment year, the previous year is again very significant for you. So according to the amendments made by the Finance Number 2 Act, the relevant assessment year would be assessment year 25-26. So you would be testing based on the amendments which are being Income Tax Act as amended by the Finance Number 2 Act 2024, and your relevant assessment year is AY 25-26. For any exam, there is a cutoff date for making the applicable the relevant notification and circulars. For that, for May 25 examination, the cutoff date is 6 months prior to your examination. Accordingly, the significant notification issued up to 31st of October 2024 are relevant, right? Then, according for November examination, in case for November examination, the cutoff date would be 30th of April 2025, right? And as per this relevant Finance Number 2 Act 2024 and the relevant assessment year 25-26 are study material. We come out with certain publications. So it's very necessary that you should do your study from the relevant publications only, right? For May 25, if we say, what are the relevant publications are there? This study material, of course, the study material, the November 24 edition is relevant for May 25 examination and November 25 examination. Why I am saying? Because this study material is updated as per the Income Tax Act as amended by the Finance Number 2 Act 2024, and also the amendments which are made by the which were made by the circulars or notifications issued up to 31st of October 2024, right? So up to that time, it is being amended, it is being updated. So kindly, you please study from these study material only. Otherwise, what will happen if you are doing from the old publication, you please make sure that the whatever be the amendments are being brought by the Finance Number 2 Act have to be keep in mind while doing the practical questions, while attempting the examples, illustrations, because these are you yourself have to be updated. Apart from that, I am telling you that the cutoff date is of 6 months. So I am saying the November 24 edition contains also the significant notification circulars which are issued up to 31st of October 2024. But there are some things which are not covered in the study material. Those we are going to provide you by way of stat update, right? For example, if I am saying for November exams, if I say for November exams, the cutoff date is 30th April. But however, since the same study material is relevant for May exams as well as for the November exams, so what will happen? How you will go about the significant notification circulars and all? For that, you have to refer to the stat update. For May 25 examination, if I will say, almost all the majority of the notification circulars which are issued up to 31st of October are covered in the study material itself. The amendments basically are covered in a bold and italics manners to have and highlight those things, to have just a glance that how these are being covered in the study material by making them bold and italics. Then there are few notifications and only one notification or circular which we have covered in the RTP. Specifically for May 25, we have not issued specific start update, but for May 25 examination in the RTP, if you have seen, I think most of you have gone through the RTPs also. So in the RTP, the start update cover one of the notification, one of the circular on IFECs is covered in the start update. Apart from this thing, the judicial rulings are equally relevant at final level. So to cover the judicial rulings, what is happening? We are covering the judicial rulings, that is mainly the Supreme Court, the Apex Court rulings, and the High Court rulings are relevant for you. So those rulings are covered in the study material itself at the end of the chapter as a significant select cases, right? Apart from those rulings, there are few rulings are there, some more rulings are there which are being pronounced during the period from 1st of April to this 1st May to 31st of October. Those rulings are covered by way of judicial update. This judicial update is independently, separately being made available to you as a judicial update for May 25 examination. Kindly download those judicial update from the website. There are few Apex Court rulings and High Court rulings are covered. Those are also equally relevant for May 25 examination, right? For November exams, we will be coming out separately the notification circulars as a start update up to 30th, covering the notification circulars issued up to 30th of April 25, and the other rulings which are pronounced during the period from 1st November to 30th April will be covered as a judicial update, right? So apart from the study material, start update, judicial update, what else? The revisionary test paper. Revisionary test paper we also come out to revise the concepts basically. Or this time RTP specifically, main focus of the RTP is to make you understand how to apply the amendments basically. So please go through the RTP. It is covering those things which are basically based on the amendments. The main emphasis of the RTP is to cover the amendments specifically. This is the thing. Apart from that, I have not mentioned, that is the MTP booklet. This time we are also come out with the MTP booklet. right? So for all the subjects, we are come out with the MTP booklet. It is covering 6 mock test papers basically are covered in that booklet for each subject. So it is for solving the MTP. Basically, we always say that once you done with your studies, right, and you have completed your study from the study material, you have gone through your start update, you have gone through your judicial update, right, you have gone through the case scenario booklet also. Case scenario booklet is also there, which is also available as a publication. Case scenario booklet, that also is very relevant for you. I will say why. So the MTP attempt करने से पहले what you have to do, you have to complete your study from the study mat, from the case scenario booklet, and the stat update or the judicial update. Once you have done your studies from these publication, then you take up the MTP, because mock test paper specifically are given to you to check your preparedness for the examination, and you are required to solve those MTPs in examination conditions basically. Why I'm saying examination condition? Because what is happening here, you have a lot of time, but during the while you are going to appear for the examination, you have specifically having the 3 hours time only, and you have to solve the whole paper within the 3 hours period, right? Whole paper you have to solve it. So वहां पे क्या होता है बच्चों को, if you are not prepared in that manner, that how you are going to appear in the examination, you will find it very difficult while you are facing the examination. For that purpose, it's strictly advisable. It's advisable to you, please attempt the mock test papers, whether it is given as an MTP booklet, or we are coming out with the MTP series also. Series 1 already been undertaken, and in the next month, series 2 is going to be placed. So for doing those mock test papers now, you please keep in mind that you should not refer any kind of publication, any kind of supporting things to solve the MTPs. You please solve it in the examination conditions only. Then only you will have confidence. It just build your confidence also, that yeah, this is the things now very much clear to me, and I can definitely appear in the examination also. His purpose के लिए you do the MTP. For that, I will tell you from where you will get this MTP booklet and this RTP and the judicial update statute. Let me take you to our website, right? In the institute website, if you see, there is on the institute page also, on the institute page, you will find a new scheme of education and training. If you click here, it will show you this page. Here, everything is given. The syllabus, study math, section-wise weightages, skill-wise weightages, RTP, suggested answers, case scenario booklets, question papers, last year question paper, or many other things. So what you have to do, you just go to the study material. The study material, if I am taking you to the final course study material, there are label-wise study material is given. The final course, if you go in group 1 and the group 2, the direct tax laws. In the group 1, if you see model test paper of group 1 is available, then the model test paper of your group 2 is also given. Model test paper are same as the mock test papers basically. So if you go to, then you can just download it here, or you can, I think, order also from the CDS, this model test paper. It is relevant for May and November examination both, right? It is updated as per the amendments made by the Finance Number 2 Act 2024. So this is the model test paper. If you go to the paper 4 direct tax laws, you will find the judicial update. You have to download it, right? It's a 7-page document. There are three rulings are covered, if I say. Yes. So there are 3 rulings. Please download this judicial update also for the purpose of May examination, right? It's a Supreme Court ruling, Bank of Rajasthan. It is just for what is the broken period time, whether that broken period interest is allowable as your revenue expenditure or not. On that aspect, it's being given, right? One of the questions also being asked based on the court case law. So how to report the case, for that you need to refer the judicial rulings. Even in the study mat itself, in every chapter, the significant select cases are given to you. So please kindly go through that also. They are really very, very important for you, right? So what they are saying, according to the Apex code, is saying that interest on the broken period cannot be considered capital expenditure and will be treated as a revenue expenditure. This is the crux of the Supreme Court ruling. This is a decision. Why they are doing it? What is the rationale behind it? You have to go through why the Supreme Court is deciding in that manner, right? What is the rationale behind the deciding this fact? Then another is on Adian Technologies, where it's all for development of software. Assessee has incurred some expenditure, but later on that project was not abandoned. So whether the expenditure incurred on that project is allowable as a revenue expenditure or not, it's on that. Please go through these ruling. I'm just briefing you what are these things. Whether the amount received as guarantee fee by a foreign company from its Indian subsidiary fall within the definition of interest. From these facts, actually, you can find some of the questions can be framed from these facts of given to you, or it can be from the case laws which are covered in your study mat. Apart from this is the judicial update. If you see, then there is the study material. Other than that, if I'm saying from where you can get the stat update, the stat update are given as a part of your RTP, revisionary test paper. For May 25, the earlier attempts RTP, actually we do not advise because they are not updated as per the latest amendments. In case if you want to refer, then please keep in mind the amendments basically which are made by the Finance Number 2 Act or the notification circulars. So the latest RTP only we will be advising you to refer the latest RTPs. If you I will take you the start update is given. Actually, the if you see the study material contains the notification circular which are issued up to 31st of October, but Pandya Raj is asking, can I join through the Zoom link? Basically, students, what we have decided that for joining through the Zoom link, you can join, but for that you have to first log into our BoS knowledge portal. From there, you will get the link of the Zoom meeting. Log in at the BoS knowledge portal with your registration number and the date of birth. Click on Success at CA exams and select the paper for direct tax laws, then it will directly take you to the Zoom link portal. From there, you can directly join us, right? Because and if you are joining through Zoom link, what happen? You can ask your query through a chat box also, and definitely one-to-one interaction can also be possible. So it's advisable. Please join through your BoS knowledge portal. You have to log in. Then you have to click on the Success CA exams for the final paper 4 direct tax law. It will directly take you up to a Zoom link, right? So from that, please join through the Zoom link, or otherwise, if you are joining, you can also raise your query through that portal also itself. So I'm discussing about the stat update. Stat update may, if you see, there are two things we have covered. That is, first is on the non-applicability of TDS provisions, non-applicability of the TDS provision in respect of certain payments made to specified units located in IFSC, and other is the circular. So this is an important notification, which is really very important from for a student. So on that basis, one of the first case scenarios, if you see, I don't know how many of you, many students have joined us through Zoom link. May I ask you how many of you have you gone through the RTP? Just raise your hands. Let them make this session more interactive. Dhruv, Soni, Anita, Shubham, Anirudh. Please raise your hand. Just I want to know from you how many of you have gone through the RTP, revisionary test paper for May 25 examination. Just raise your hands. Is it audible? Dhruv, Anirudh, Shubham, Anita, Soni. They're raising their hands. Please raise your hands. Just I'm asking a simple question. How many of you have gone through the revisionary test paper? Can you communicate in case if you are finding difficult to do your, through the chat box also? Nobody has done it. May I presume that you have not done it? You just raise your hand so that I can, unmute you if anybody wants to discuss something. Dhruv, can we allow them to unmute? They have not gone through the RTP. Okay, Dhruv, you have not. Okay, chat box is being able. You can, yeah, of course, you can chat through the. Now it is allowed. You are permitted to chat through the chat box also, is it? Yes. So Dhruv, you have not. Or what about others? Okay, वैसे भी मैं बोल रही हूँ आपसे कि you have to do your RTP only once you have prepared with your you have done your yeah. Yeah. Now you can unmute also in case if you have want to discuss something. Just but unnecessary making any. Okay, I am planning to cover the RTP in first week of April. Okay, okay, Anirudh. The screen is not very visible. Okay, let me do it a little bit zoom. Now you tell me, is it visible? Okay, Anita also not. It you because it's now March ending, right? And you have only 1 month, and it is really covering so many amendments also. So now it's better, good. So it's really very important document for you, to understand the applicability of how to apply the amendments. Basically, this year is really, if I say this year is something for which you are supposed to remember two different provisions. For example, because these amendments are made applicable from mid of the years and specific dates. So remembering those dates and remembering the earlier provisions and the new provisions this time is really a bit complicated year for you students. So it's very essential for you to do lot of practice to understand, to retain. Basically those dates are very essential for you to retain the amendments, if I say. So it's very necessary, right? So I am telling you कि this RTP this start update आप देखोगे सिर्फ इसमें दो ही हमने cover किए हैं. We have covered one of the notification pertaining to, yeah, definitely Varagunan, I will be. Yeah, RTP Shailesh has done the RTP very good. Yes, ma'am, done, not done. It's good. We are going to discuss how to score the good marks along with the section-wise compliances. What type of questions are being asked in your examination? Those things we are going to cover. First, just I'm telling you how to, from where you have to study, what all resources you have to keep in mind while preparing for the paper. Right. So this is the RTP is one of the publication where we have covered the start update. आपको कोई डाउट नहीं होना चाहिए because students are having lots of doubt कि why there is no start update being given to us for having aware of knowing the provisions which are being amended. So for that purpose, let me make you clear the start update is just for the purpose of bringing out bringing out the significant notifications and circulars only. The amendments which are made by your finance number 2 act or the finance acts, those are directly covered in your study material because each and every content relating to those provisions need updations, and based on those updation each and every questions also requires to be updated. For that purpose we have covered the amendments in the study material itself by highlighting them in bold and italics, right? So अलग से कोई separately अलग से और कोई document नहीं है for covering the amendments. Everything is covered in your study material. If you say ask me, then I will show you one place where you can have just an overview of what are the significant key amendments in the paper. Let me take you through that portion also. This is your study material. If you have gone through the study material, in the study material के initial pages में, if you go to the initial pages, there is an overview is given. This overview of selected key amendments made by the Finance Number 2 Act 2024 are covered in your study material initial pages. Just you go through those significant amendments, but they are not covered in detail in these initial pages because we have covered it in the chapter itself. For having an in-depth understanding of these amendments, you are advised to refer the chapters itself, right? So this document you can go through. for just having a just having a overview of what are the amendments covered relevant for the May 25 examination. Yes. Okay. So I am telling you 2 अमेंडमेंट्स कवर थी यहाँ पे जो हम कर रहे थे स्टार्ट अपडेट, जहाँ पे हमने आईएफएससी से रिलेटेड 2 एक सर्कुलर एक नोटिफिकेशन कवर किया है. उससे रिलेटेड ही वन ऑफ द फर्स्ट केस सिनेरियो इज बेस्ड ऑन द आईएफएससी ओनली, बिकॉज आईएफएससी आर समथिंग व्हिच आर रियली very very important from an economy point of view, and the government is keep on promoting the IFSCs and promoting the foreign investors to come and invest in the IFSC centers. For that purpose, the government is pronouncing so many tax benefits for the investors also, and along with the IFSC units. So for that purpose, this notification they have come out कि the units which are located in the IFSC and in respect of certain payments, no TDS is required to be made, subject to the conditions they are claiming deduction under section 80LA. If they are not started claiming deductions because it's available for a consecutive 10 assessment years, then in that case they are not claiming the deduction, that then this benefit they will not be allowable. This benefit of non-applicable, this non-deduction of TDS is not available to them, right? Then apart from this, one circular is there which is in line with the overseas banks के लिए. There are some confusions that whether these benefit provisions of section 1015 is applicable for the IFSC units, banking units which are located in the IFSC centers or not. Yes, that is applicable for those units also. This is covered in your circular, right? Now let's again go back to our discussion ki how to prepare for this study material. This I have told you, this MTP model test paper are there, case scenario booklet is there, that you please solve it. Before moving to the section wise, I will take you through the manner of assessment. What are the manner of assessment? Everybody must be aware of what are the manner of your assessment. All papers of final label or its intermediate label. If I say all papers of final label, including this your final paper 4 direct tax laws, is assessed by way of your 30% case scenario based questions and 70% is your descriptive questions, right? 30% is case scenario based question. Case scenario based questions means you will be given a case scenario. Based on that case scenario, around 3 to 5 questions are appended to that case scenarios. So the 3 to 5 questions जो होंगे वो आपके are dependent based on the facts given in the case scenario. So on that basis you are going to answer those case scenario based MCQs basically. Then 70% is descriptive questions. 70% आपको जो होगा 70 marks का means वो होगा descriptive form में. Descriptive form means you have to write the answers in your answer sheet, right? But in case of case scenario based question, MCQ would be given. Out of the 4 options, you have to choose the most appropriate one option only. And you need not to give any kind of reasoning while attempting the case scenario based question. However, when you are attempting the descriptive questions, you have to definitely be extra careful how to present your answers, because you have to substantiate your answers with the provisions. What are the provisions applicable while arriving at a particular conclusion while doing a particular computations? Because if I say we have continuously noticing key students are very much aware of the provisions, but they are still not able to fetch the good marks. What is the reason behind it? The reason is कि आप वहाँ पे you are not able to present your answers the way it is required to be presented. For descriptive question specifically, you are very much required to substantiate your computations, your conclusions, or your analysis part with the relevant provisions of the law. Right? अगर आप नहीं करोगे, आप specifically, for example, if I say the first question is your compulsory question and it is based on the computation of total income or tax liability of a companies or the firm or the AOP, BOIs, whatever it is. So वहाँ पे क्या होगा, आपके पास computations तो you are able to do the computations, but while making the adjustments, computing the PGBP at that time, or while doing the computations of capital gains, you are supposed to write in brief the reasoning why you are doing that kind of adjustment. What is the reason? What provision is being involved to do such adjustments, right? This is very very important. तो आपको वहां पे brief में reason support करना है अपना. You have to write on brief below the adjustment ki is why this is being applied. For example, if I say 48 की बात करें relatives के लिए excess payment is not allowable, right, to the in excess of the market fair market value, then whatever the amount will be disallowed. So you have to mention it. 48(3) की बात करें cash payments कर रहे हैं, cash payment exceeding 10,000 are not allowable in a day. So what you have to do, you have to mention it. This is being disallowed. That's why you are adding it back. And it was being allowed, it's being debited in the statement of profit and loss account. And due to the reason, since the as per the 48(3), this cash payments are not allowable in excess of 10,000. So that amount is disallowed. That reasoning is very essential to mention it. For example, some computation of capital gains comes into your क्वेश्चन पेपर. एट दैट टाइम आपको कुछ एग्जाम्पशन बतानी है, 54 की एग्जाम्पशंस बतानी है. आपने सम कोर्ट रूलिंग इज अप्लीकेबल. फॉर एग्जांपल उन्होंने 2 यूनिट्स परचेज की, 2 हाउसेस आर परचेज, नाउ इट्स अवेलेबल अप टू 2 crore. You will be eligible to claim the exemptions up for a 2 house if your this is 2 crores, consideration is less than 2 crores and all. But there is an another Pasapa case where the court is deciding, even if the assessee is acquiring 2 units adjacent to each other, right? In that case, the assessee would be eligible to show it as a one residential house. It will be allowable. So that analysis, that rationale you have to bring in your answer sheet. You have to clearly write it in your answer sheet while attempting the descriptive questions. ठीक है? MCQs में बहुत अच्छा point ये होता है कि you need not to write anything, right? And there would be no negative marking. No negative marking is there while attempting the MCQ sections, right? And you need not to give any kind of reasoning also. But I must say कि जब आपको कोई computations का problem आता है, instead of using only the calculator, what you have to do, make some rough page. You make one of the page in your answer sheet as a rough page or in the side. You can use that page and make the calculation in a proper manner. Otherwise, some or the other way, you will tend to skip something. दिस ईयर तो बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट क्रूशियल ईयर है. आप देखोगे आपकी अमेंडमेंट्स जो आई हैं, फॉर एग्जाम्पल कैपिटल गेन्स की मैं कहूँ बात कि इन द कैपिटल गेन्स दिस इज बीइंग अफेक्टिव फ्रॉम फ्रॉम 23rd July 2024 दे आर implemented. The rates have undergone change. The period of holding undergone change. Many more things are there. No indexation benefit is available. However, to provide the grandfathering, provide the grandfathering benefit to the individuals or the HUFs resident in India, only the resident in India, they have been given the option that they can take the benefit of indexation while computing the tax liability. While computing the tax liability. तो ये आपको बहुत केयरफुली फैक्ट्स को बहुत अच्छे से यू हैव टू रीड कि इनकी डेट्स क्या दी हुई है. व्हाट आर द डेट्स फॉर ट्रांसफर बेसिकली इन केस ऑफ कैपिटल एसेट्स. व्हाट आर द डेट्स ऑफ ट्रांसफर. अकॉर्डिंगली योर the nature of asset is going to be determined. Accordingly, the rates are also going to be determined. So this is very essential. Even though आप बात करें आपका इसमें MCQ क्वेश्चन भी आता है, वहां पे भी आपको एक्स्ट्रा केयरफुल होना है क्योंकि वहां पे क्या होगा, इफ यू हैव selected by mistake a wrong option, you will be getting 0 mark, right? You will not be given any mark. But आपका descriptive में क्या होगा, you will in the descriptive question step marks will be there and you will fetch some of the marks even though your computations of total income have gone wrong, but still you can fetch some of the marks based on the step marking. But MCQs में be extra careful. आप एक बार सॉल्व करने के बाद अगेन चेक इट थॉरली कि कहीं पे आपने फॉर एग्जांपल सरचार्ज एप्लीकेबल होना था बट आप वहां पे सरचार्ज भूल गए लगाना. ऑप्शंस वुड बी मोर क्लोजर टू ईच अदर जहां पे देयर आर वेरी मच चांसेस कि सम और दी अदर ट्रिकी पॉइंट्स मस्ट बी टेस्टेड सो दैट द स्टूडेंट्स वुड गेट कंफ्यूज्ड. ठीक है, वहां पे आपको बहुत एक्स्ट्रा केयरफुल होना है. एक बार सॉल्व करने के बाद गिव सम टाइम ऑल्सो टू रिवाइज दोज थिंग्स अगेन, राइट? इन दैट वे आपको कोई नेगेटिव मार्किंग नहीं है. चाहे आपको एंड में लगता है नहीं आता है, गलत है क्वेश्चन, कुछ भी है क्वेश्चन में, यू आर सपोज टू मार्क द आंसर्स इन योर ओएमआर शीट. ठीक है, कोई भी क्वेश्चन छोड़ के नहीं आना है इवन दो आपको लग रहा है कि क्वेश्चन में कुछ गलती है. देन ऑल्सो प्लीज मार्क दैट क्वेश्चन. ठीक है, आप मार्क करिए उसको कोई प्रॉब्लम होने के बाद भी, क्योंकि यहाँ पे आपकी कोई नेगेटिव मार्किंग नहीं है। ठीक है, क्वेश्चन नहीं समझ में आ रहा, देन ऑल्सो अटेम्प्टेड। ठीक है, ट्राई टू अटेम्प्ट इट। वन क्वेरी इज बीइंग आस्क्ड. Shubham is asking, in case of MCQ, is there a scope of questions involving lengthy computation up to a maximum up to 2-3 steps only? It would not be very lengthy questions because each MCQ would be of 2 marks. ठीक है, 2 नंबर का एमसीक्यू होगा, केस सिनेरियो बेस्ड हो, चाहे वो आपका इंडिपेंडेंट क्वेश्चंस में हो, आपको 2 मार्क्स का एमसीक्यू होगा. इट वुड बी ऑफ 30 मार्क्स, टोटलिंग टू आपका 30 मार्क्स होगा. मेनली आपके जो एमसीक्यूज होंगे दैट वुड बी बेस्ड ऑन द केस सिनेरियो. Some or 1 or 2 or 3 MCQs may be asked as an independent MCQs. वहां पे भी दे आर बेसिकली रिलेटेड टू द फैक्ट्स में है. आप देखोगे आपके आरटीपी में देखो या आपके एमटीपीज में देखो, वहां पे भी इसी वे में एमसीक्यूज आर बी आस्क्ड टू यू. तो बहुत लेंथी नहीं होगा, बट मैं आई वांट टू से कि आप जब भी व्हेनेवर यू आर अटेम्प्टिंग द एमसीक्यू आल्सो कोई कंपटीशन बेस्ड एमसीक्यू है, तो उसकी आपको ना थोड़ा बेटर तरीके से प्लीज कैलकुलेटेड, सो दैट सम ऑफ द अदर थिंग शुड नॉट बी इग्नोर्ड. गलती से यू शुड नॉट लीव समथिंग. That's what I want to ask. So this is your manner of assessment basically, कि what type of pattern would be there. Apart from that, let me take you कि आपका पेपर पैटर्न क्या होगा. आपको I am already explaining you कि case scenario based 30 marks का होगा. All MCQs are compulsory MCQs. You please do not leave any of the MCQs, even though you are not knowing it, even though you are knowing कि some of the things is not correct in the MCQ, you are supposed to answer each and every MCQ. In the descriptive questions, if you say, there would be 6 marks, 6 questions would be there. First question would be compulsory question. First question would be compulsory question of 14 marks. ठीक है, compulsory question होगा. Out of the remaining 5 questions of 14 marks each, they would also be of 14 marks each, and you have to attempt any 4 questions. So altogether, you have to attempt 5 questions. ठीक है, 5 questions of 14 marks each in the descriptive portion. Internal choice would be there, would be given to you in any one of the optional question. Option question में आपकी internal choice is may be possible. So please see in what question the internal choice is given to you, right? So the first question, if you say, it is mainly based on the chapter assessment of various entities. Chapter 9 से होता है आपका, section 1 से होता है. यहाँ पे if I say कि आप you are supposed to write substantiate the adjustments by writing their provisions. Highlight the key points. Highlight the key points. For example, मैं बात करूं cash payments exceeding 10,000. Highlight those points with the pen you are writing with. ठीक है, so that the examiner also knowing कि you know the provisions और सीधे से highlight हो रहा है and it's directly can give you mark. ठीक है, इन केस सपोज इफ यू आर नॉट डूइंग सम ऑफ द एडजस्टमेंट, आपको नहीं समझ में आ रही कोई एडजस्टमेंट, इसमें रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर है, कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर बेस्ड ऑन सम रूलिंग, सपोज फॉर एग्जांपल, एंड यू आर नॉट अवेयर ऑफ दैट रूलिंग और द citation of the rule you are not remembering, do not write the wrong citation. You may write just the adjustment. It would be allowable as deduction, it would not be allowable as deduction since it's a revenue expenditure. Whatever the conclusion you are drawing it, you please write it in your answer sheet. In case if your conclusion was wrong and you could not get the correct adjustment, then also step marks are there. उस adjustment के लिए will not fetch the marks, but you will fetch the marks for other adjustments, right? For example, आपका अगर आपको कोई भी adjustment गलत हो गया, in case if your sum of your adjustment gone wrong, तो क्या होगा, your total income definitely would not be correct. ठीक है, वहां पे आपकी total income गलत होगी, consequently your tax liability would also be wrong. तो आपका सपोज यहाँ पे सरचार्ज की इम्प्लीकेशंस आई, या फिर आपका कॉर्पोरेट्स का टैक्स रेट था, सपोज अगर आपको 115 BAB के बेसिस पे है तो 22% लगेगा, सरचार्ज फिक्स्ड एट 10%. अगर आपको नॉर्मल क्वेश्चन है, मतलब दे आर कंपनी आर नॉट ऑप्टिंग फॉर एनी ऑफ द कंसेशन टैक्स रिजाइम, देन यू हैव टू सी द टर्नओवर ऑफ द कंपनी फॉर द प्रीवियस ईयर 22-23. दैट वुड बी गिवन इन योर आंसर. 22-23 का टर्नओवर आपका 4 करोड़ से कम है, देन योर रेट वुड बी 25%. अगर ज्यादा है देन इट वुड बी रेट योर 25%. ठीक है, 30%, ज्यादा है तो 30%, अगर कम है तो 25%. और वहां पे आपको सरचार्ज वुड बी डिपेंडेंट ऑन योर टोटल इनकम. ठीक है, तो आपको पता चल गया कि द कंपनीज टोटल इनकम एक्सीज 1 करोड़, तो अगर यू हैव टू मेंशन द रेट आल्सो इन योर आंसर, क्योंकि आपने कोई एडजस्टमेंट गलत कर दी, इसकी वजह से आपकी टैक्स लायबिलिटी इज नॉट कमिंग करेक्टली. ठीक है, आपकी टोटल इनकम आल्सो गॉन रॉन्ग. वो बात अलग है कि आपकी 1 करोड़ से ज्यादा आनी चाहिए थी, बट आपकी टोटल इनकम इज नाउ कमिंग बाय डूइंग द रॉन्ग एडजस्टमेंट, इट्स कमिंग लोअर देन द 1 करोड़. तो आपको पता है कि आपको सरचार्ज नहीं लगेगा. इट्स रियली अनफॉर्चुनेट कि आप उस तरीके से डिफरेंसेस आ गया आपका, बट आपका 1 करोड़ से ज्यादा ही आ रहा है, गलत होता तो भी 1 करोड़ से ज्यादा आता, ज्यादा होता तो भी 1 करोड़ से ज्यादा आता, इन दैट केस यू प्लीज मेंशन द सरचार्ज रेट ऑल्सो, इट इज 7%, ठीक है, और 10 करोड़ से ज्यादा है, इट इज 12%। तो आपका वहां पर रेट का मार्क होगा, समझ रहे हो, तो इसलिए प्लीज मेंशन दैट रेट। कीप इन माइंड मार्जिन रिलीफ के लिए, फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ आई से कि मार्जिन रिलीफ अप्लीकेबल हो जाता है टू अ लिमिटेड एक्सटेंट, कि आपकी इनकम कुछ मिनिमल इज एक्सीडिंग टू द 1 करोड़ लिमिट। तो मार्जिन रिलीफ के लिए क्वेश्चन में दैट स्पेसिफिक requirement would not be there, ठीक है, they are not going to write compute the margin relief or keep in mind the margin relief also, that you have to catch your on your own कि यहाँ पे margin relief is also have to see, ठीक है, वो आपको खुद से you have to gather this information, those kind some of the information you have to yourself gather it। तो आई एम सेइंग कि मेंशन द रेट अगेन, सरचार्ज जो भी रेट होगा वो मेंशन करिए। टैक्स का रेट क्या होगा दैट यू मेंशन, इंस्टेड ऑफ शोइंग डायरेक्टली टू गोइंग टू द कंप्यूटेशन, आपने उसकी कंप्यूटेशंस करके दिखा दी, यू हैव शोन दी कंप्यूटेशंस, आई एम सेइंग यू प्लीज mention the rate also in your answer sheet, okay, the HEC 4%, please mention that 4%, because अभी amount or figure वहां पे may be wrong due to some of the adjustment, but your rate are correct, so you may get some mark for that, ठीक है। This is what about the other, even in other questions also same you have to follow this thing section wise की what strategies की बात करें बच्चे, just let me before taking you to the section wise weightages, because section wise weightages really makes a difference for doing the preparation for this subject basically, so I will take you through this section wise weightages। इससे पहले आपको कैसे preparation करनी है for this subject, if I say there are at least 3 revisions are required, राइट आपने फर्स्ट में प्रिपेयर किया, आपने एक बार पढ़ लिया, उसके बाद सेकंड रिवीजन इज रिक्वायर्ड एंड द थर्ड रिवीजन इज आल्सो रिक्वायर्ड, एंड द इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट इज दैट once you go through the provisions, please solve all the questions, please solve, I'm telling you, solve means solve, don't read it, because the main problem with the students that they keep on reading the things only, लेकिन you would not be able to solve those similar questions if you are being asked in the question paper, then definitely you would not be able to attempt it unless you are solving it on yourself by taking the paper and pen. So again, I am saying by taking a paper and pen, whatever be the questions, after reading, after going through the provisions, you please solve all the illustrations, all the examples, all the test your knowledge questions in your study material, जो भी आपको दिए हैं। After finishing your study material, take your case scenario booklet, because आपको practice करने के लिए case scenario booklet के लिए you have to knowing ki how the case, what type of case scenarios would be asked in the exams. For that purpose, you then practice the case scenario booklet. Whenever you are attempting the questions, it's make sure ki whatever you are answering, whatever you are solving it, in case you are not understanding the provision, then definitely there is some mistake you have done. Please highlight those portions in your answer sheet. In case of in your study mat also, in case of second revision, again come and revise those portions, ठीक है, at the time of day before the examination, again you are supposed to go through those highlighted portions where you have done the mistake, so same kind of mistake would not be again happen in your exams. Other than this, I always recommend students that try to make your own notes. When you make on your own notes, it will give you confidence, it will help you to understand the provisions in a much better way, because aapne, if you have, we have provided you some table presentation, some flow charts, something, you know, we are coming out with the student journal, the saransh is there, but of course saransh you have to keep in mind the updates, because at present it's not updated, you have to keep in mind the updates while, you know, referring the saransh applicable for these direct tax laws paper. So whatever we are giving you, whatever be the notes are available on the live virtual classes which you have done, the recordings are available, the notes, the faculty keeps on giving you notes also. So आप सब कुछ है आपके पास, but still we recommend that you please prepare your own notes, right? They will be very useful for you when you are revising the things immediately day before your examination. So always we recommend it. Keep please prepare your own notes and highlight the areas where you have some problems while doing your first study and in your second study, second time of revision. So those highlighted portions you can again revise on the day before the examination. ठीक है. टाइम मैनेजमेंट इज अगेन वेरी एसेंशियल. इफ आई से हाउ टू मैनेज द टाइम्स, आपका 30% है, आपका 30% ऑफ योर पेपर वुड बी एमसीक्यू बेस्ड पेपर. आपका 180 मिनट्स टाइमिंग मिलेगा. 15 मिनट्स टाइमिंग इज फॉर रीडिंग द डिस्क्रिप्टिव क्वेश्चंस. सो आपका जो 180 मिनट्स में से इफ आई से यू प्लीज डिवोट ओनली 40 to 45 मिनट्स फॉर एमसीक्यूज. आप 5 मिनट 40 मिनट्स आप रखिए, 40 मिनट्स आप एमसीक्यूज के लिए. अगर आप देखोगे 30% आपका 54 मार्क्स का 54 मिनट्स का होगा. बट आई एम सेइंग व्हाई 40-45 मिनट्स, बिकॉज एमसीक्यूज में यू नीड नॉट टू राइट एनीथिंग. बट फॉर बिकॉज इस तरीके से हम प्रोपोर्शनेट नहीं कर सकते कि 30% हमारा एमसीक्यू तो हम 54 मिनट्स वहां रख लें एंड रिमेनिंग मिनट्स फॉर द डिस्क्रिप्टिव. बिकॉज इन द डिस्क्रिप्टिव you have to write the answers. In the MCQs, you need not to write, you need not to bother about the presentations, how to present the question, because it's not always necessary ki the questions which are being asked on paper are from your mock test paper, model test paper, or from the publication which you have gone through. They would be new questions also. So agar you know the provisions, you have a good understanding of the provisions, then there would be no difficulty even if the question is not familiar to you, right? Even then you would be able to attempt it if you are having a good understanding of the provisions. ठीक है. provisions के understanding के लिए better to make your own notes, try to solve the questions given in the MTPs, in the RTPs and all the publications, right? Or try to make your own facts also to have an understanding of the provisions. That is also one of the best way to have a good hold over the provisions. ठीक है. अब I am talking you time management के लिए 40 मिनट्स आप अलोकेट करो एमसीक्यूज के लिए. आपको पहले एमसीक्यूज करना है या आपको डिस्क्रिप्टिव करना है, दिस योर ओन चॉइस. इट्स योर ओन चॉइस कि आपको क्या बेटर लगता है, आपको क्या अटेम्प्ट करना है. बट डोंट कीप ऑन वेस्टिंग लॉट ऑफ टाइम ऑन अ सिंगल क्वेश्चन. अगर आपको एक एमसीक्यू आ रहा है देन यू डू इट. Keep in mind the time also, because it's one MCQ will give you only 2 marks, right? अगर आपको नहीं attempt समझ में आ रहा है, you please proceed further. आप दोबारा से you come again when you have done your whole paper, attempt come again, come back to those questions which you have left, right? And try to attempt at that time. Don't keep on wasting on the whole time on attempting a single question or one of the MCQs. Similarly, the approach for doing the descriptive also, 15 minutes time is given to you. During that 15 minutes time, what you have to do, you have to make a analyze the things, which questions you are going to attempt. First is compulsory, so there is no choice. In the remaining 5 questions, you have an option to leave one of the questions, right? Because 4 have to be attempted. So whatever your choice, make that choice at that time itself. Otherwise, what will happen? Please see all the parts also. All the parts, please see. Whatever be the parts are there to a question, please see all the parts while making that choice. Suppose, for example, there are 3 parts in the question, right? इसमें से आपको 2 parts, एक पार्ट आ रहा है, 2 नहीं आ रहे हैं, या फिर थर्ड एक क्वेश्चन ऐसा है जिसके आपको 2 parts आ रहे हैं, 1 you are not aware है, तो आप वो वाला चूज करो. So whatever be the choice, please do make a choice at the time of when you are reading the descriptive questions. ठीक है, उस टाइम ही कर लेनी है, फिर दोबारा से रिटर्न बैक नहीं करना है. If you have started doing the questions again, you want to go to the other questions, it will unnecessarily make you waste the time. So it's better you should be very sure while making this choice कि what questions I am going to attempt. तो आपने कर लिया, तो सबसे पहले it's not necessary कि you have to start with the compulsory question. You need not to start with the compulsory question. It's nowhere written. You can pick up any question. It may be 6th question also, it can be 4th question also, it can be 3rd question also, whatever your choice, right? You can attempt any questions first, because first impression is the last impression. It's better कि जो आपको बहुत अच्छे से आता है, बहुत अच्छे से you know the provisions, you are understanding, you are knowing कि how to present this question, take that question first. But be very, very, very extra careful that all the parts of a question should be in continuation. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि अगर आप you have opted to do the question number 6, right? You have opted to do the question number 6 and there are 3 parts. There are 3 sub parts to that question. Please do solve all the questions in continuation. For example, 6C आपने उठा के, अब 6C भी ले सकते हो आप पहले. It's not कि आप 6A ही लोगे. 6C, 6A, 6B. all should be in continuation. आप clearly लिखो कि ये 6A है, 6B है, 6C है, because we have checked some of the answer sheets also. Students come out and show us the certified copies. There we have found कि students are not writing the answer numbers also. Then in that case it would be very difficult for the examiner to know ki what answer is related to, which question this answer is related to. That analysis examiner is not going to do for you, right? So make sure पहले question start करने से पहले ही you should mention what this question is along with the part number. Question number 6, then part C. Question number 4, part B, whatever, and it should be in continuation. अगर आपको एक part नहीं आ रहा है, leave some space, कर सकते हो तो कर दो, और otherwise what you can do, leave some space. Later on when the time remains, you please again come, or at the end जो जितना आपको समझ में आ रहा है उतना you write it, and just make a note कि just put a cross sign कि this space is not usable. That unusable space के लिए you can just make a simply a cross sign. ठीक है? Be write in a legible manner. It should be readable to the examiner, right? Or highlight the important key points in your answer sheet. It's very, very important for you. Please highlight the key points in the answer sheets. ठीक है? This is the strategy you have to do for your examination for attempting the paper, right? Now let me take you through the section-wise weightages. You must be aware of कि there is section-wise weightages are assigned for each subject, right? How many of you are aware of कि there is a section-wise weightage? How many of you have gone through the section-wise weightages and you have make this strategy based on these section-wise weightages? How many of you are aware of? Dhruv, Urvi, very good. Urvi knows it. Dhruv, Anita, Shubham, are you aware of? Just raise your hands. Shubham is aware of, very good. Well, what about others? What about others? Only Urvi, Dhruv, Anita, very good. So I'm telling you, the direct tax law paper is specifically divided into 3 sections and based on the what nature of the provisions are. For example, you are going to deal with substantive provisions of the Income Tax Act, the procedural provisions of the Income Tax Act, and the international taxation. The Income Tax Act contains the provisions which are relevant for the international taxation for the non-residents, basically. And apart from this, there are model tax conventions. The overview of model tax convention is there. BEPS are there. The OECD BEPS, they have come out with the BEPS, right? Base erosion, profit shifting provisions, and your interpretation of law, and the latest developments in the international taxation. These are the things which are in their international taxation. So first I'm talking about the substantive provisions. Substantive provisions means the provisions which are for the purpose of determining the total income and tax liability of a person. Okay? Procedural are the things which are the compliance things, documentation, furnishing of returns. TDS is also compliance things, right? Filing of the returns, making the appeals, revisions, income tax authorities powers, offenses and prosecution, penalty provisions, and all are the procedural laws, right? And the international taxation that I have already explained, the non-resident taxation provisions, the transfer pricing provisions, the double taxation relief, the advance ruling, and the last 4 chapters are on overview of model tax conventions, the BEPS, the interpretations, and your latest developments in international taxation. Accordingly, you have for this subject, there are 3 sections. The first section is being given 40 to 45% marks. 40 to 45% means almost 50% is covered in the first section. Okay? And then your section 2 is on procedural law. That is, first is on substantive law. Then the second is your procedural law, for which 20 to 30% is being allocated from this section. And the third is on 30 to 35%, right? So if you say there is a huge weightage assigned for international taxation also, कितने चैप्टर्स हैं आप देखोगे, फर्स्ट सेक्शन इतना ह्यूज सेक्शन है, इसके लिए आपके टू मॉड्यूल्स ऑफ द स्टडी मटेरियल आर स्पेसिफिकली अलॉटेड फॉर दिस सेक्शन 1. ठीक है, फ्रॉम चैप्टर 1 to 8 are covered in your first module, that is up to deductions from gross total income, right? From the basic concepts to deductions from gross total income is covered in your first module. Then the ninth chapter, that is on assessment of various entities, is covered in second module as chapter 9. For that, in the section 1 again, there are two more subsections, that is subsection 1, that is assigned a weightage of 20 to 23% marks, percent weightage, and 20 to 22% weightage assigned for subsection 2. If you see the first subsection में, there are 9 chapters in total, from basic concepts to assessment of various entities. And for subsection 2, आप देखोगे similar kind of weightage is given only for 3 chapters. 3 chapters हैं, but weightage is equivalent to the 9 chapters. वहाँ पे 9 chapters cover किए थे, यहाँ पे आपके 3 chapters पे this huge weightage is given. Then again, this I am telling you, this is again a plus point for you कि आपको 3 chapters करने हैं and you have 20 to 22% marks in your hand. ठीक है, जो भी करके जाओ, बेस्ट करके जाओ, वट एवर यू हैव डन. ठीक है, अगर मैं कहूँ यहाँ पे चैप्टर 10 है असेसमेंट ऑफ ट्रस्ट, इंस्टीट्यूशंस, पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज एंड अदर स्पेशल एंटिटीज. इसमें अदर स्पेशल एंटिटीज इफ यू से द रीट्स, इन्वेस्टमेंट फंड्स, सिक्योरिटाइजेशन ट्रस्ट is also covered in this chapter only, apart from the charitable trust. So one or the other questions would be asked from this chapter. The reads से चाहे वो आपके case scenario based में आए या फिर they would be asked in a descriptive form. Any way they can ask. Then there is chapter 11 and chapter 12. Chapter 11 was on tax planning and tax avoidance. Generally इस पे भी एक question आ ही जाता है, either from the GAR or the tax planning, tax evasion, tax and management in any one of the form, or from the taxation of digital transactions. Taxation of digital transactions की बात करें तो यहाँ पे equalization levy है. Equalization levy में the equalization levy 2, that is for 2% on the e-commerce supply and goods and services के लिए, that is not relevant for your examination, that has been abolished, right? So but the 6% levy is still relevant on the online advertisement. As of all the online advertisement, that is 6% of levy is equally relevant. And apart from this equalization levy, the virtual digital assets, the concept of virtual digital asset is covered in chapter 12. Whatever the illustrations, questions are given in the study mat, do practice those, and you have a lot of things. You can just mark in your model test papers कि this is from your chapter this is from your chapter this. For example, if I have taken to revise my chapter 10. ठीक है, मैं चैप्टर 10 करने जा रहा हूँ. आपने ऑलरेडी, मैं अज्यूम कर रही हूँ कि आपने ऑलरेडी यू हैव प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर योर, वंस यू हैव डन योर स्टडी कंप्लीटली. नाउ अब मैं अगेन आई एम रिवाइजिंग द थिंग्स. मेरे को चैप्टर 10 रिवाइज करना है. वॉट एवर योर नोट्स आर देयर, डू रिवाइज दोज नोट्स, डू प्रैक्टिस और द हाईलाइटेड पोर्शंस इन योर स्टडी मैथ. फिर उसके बाद में आपने रिलेटेड केस सिनेरियोस मार्क इन योर बुकलेट ऑफ द केस सिनेरियोस कि दिस इज रिलेटेड टू योर चैप्टर 10. जो आप चैप्टर 10 में कर रहे हो, मॉडल टेस्ट पेपर कर रहे हो, वहां से भी यू मार्क द रिलेवेंट क्वेश्चंस विच आर ऑन चैप्टर 10. तो आप जब कर रहे हो, आपसे मैंने बोला कि फर्स्ट टाइम जब स्टडी कर रहे हो या सेकंड रिविजन कर रहे हो, यू हैव टू सॉल्व द क्वेश्चंस ऑन योर ओन. आपने वहां पे सॉल्व करके रखा है, मार्क करके भी रखा हुआ है. तो आप जब व्हेन यू आर डूइंग इट, आपको लग रहा है यू आर नॉट स्टिल कॉन्फिडेंट इन दोज थिंग्स, देन प्लीज अगेन सॉल्व इट फ्रॉम रिलेटेड टू द चैप्टर 10. तो मैंने आज चैप्टर 10 प्रिपेयर किया. मुझे पता है कि मेरे इट इज गोइंग टू कम फॉर 8 marks और 10 marks, 8 to 10 marks or 6 to 10 marks. It may vary. So now it is in my hand. Any way you can ask me any questions from this chapter, I would be able to answer it. That kind of confidence is needed from you. ठीक है, इतना कॉन्फिडेंस आपको होना चाहिए. इतने क्वेश्चंस आप कर चुके हो, आपको अब कॉन्फिडेंस आ जाएगा. ऐसे ही मैंने टैक्स प्लानिंग की बात करी. टैक्स प्लानिंग के जो भी रिलेटेड क्वेश्चंस है, मार्क इन योर स्टडी मटेरियल कि इसका मैं आरटीपी में ये क्वेश्चन है, एमटीपी में ये क्वेश्चन है, केस सिनेरियो बुकलेट में ये क्वेश्चन है. एक अपना पेजर बना लो जहां पे आप जब प्रैक्टिस या रिवाइज करने जा रहे हो, एट दैट टाइम यू कैन डू द रिवाइज दोस क्वेश्चंस अगेन. ठीक है, चैप्टर 12 वीडीए के क्वेश्चंस है, इक्वलाइजेशन लेवी के क्वेश्चंस है, मेनी क्वेश्चंस आर देयर. Plethora of questions are there in your publications. Make sure do solve each and every questions when you are doing particular chapter. So मैंने क्या बोला, subsection 2 is having a huge weightage of 20 to 22%, 20 to 24 marks may come from this, or it's a combined weightage, right? It isn't combined weightage, of course, but it may it is possible. Some deviation is also possible, but it's in combined weightage for section 1 is 40 to 45%. In that way you can prepare. So आप बोलोगे first section में 1 to 9 chapters and assessment to various entities में, इसमें तो compulsory एक question आना ही है आपका. First question is a compulsory question. In another part also, one or the two questions may be asked for 8 marks, और some of the case scenario can also be asked based on these sections. इस बार तो बहुत amendments हैं आपके first section 1 में, बहुत amendments हैं. In your capital gains there are many amendments. In your income from other sources में buyback of shares and all those things are amended, है ना, वो वाली amendments हैं. Many amendments that default tax regime की rates have changed, right? So those kinds of things are also there. So make sure कि जो भी questions हैं आपकी, whatever be the questions are given, do solve those questions. ये compulsory तो आना ही आना है. Plus other than that, one or the two questions may also be asked from this section. ठीक है? Then आपका आया section 2. Section 2 में देखें आपके काफी chapters हैं. But स्ट्रैटेजी के लिए अगर आपको यहाँ पे पढ़ाई करनी है, यू हैव टू डू द स्ट्रैटेजी. क्या स्ट्रैटेजी यूज करें इस सेक्शन को कंप्लाई करने के लिए? आई मस्ट से डिडक्शन, कलेक्शन एंड रिकवरी ऑफ टैक्स इज रियली 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 वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. ठीक है, इजी भी है, रिटेन करना भी इजी है, इजी टू अंडरस्टैंड भी है. यू प्लीज डू इट प्रॉपरली. यहाँ पे मैटर आपका जस्ट व्हाट विल मैटर यू कि यू हाउ यू आर प्रेजेंटिंग योर आंसर्स, ये बहुत मैटर करेगा. प्लस आपको डेट्स ऑल्सो, प्लीज 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 रिमेंबर द अमेंडमेंट्स एंड द डेट्स. व्हाट डेट इज गिवन इन योर क्वेश्चन, accordingly you have to answer, because there are certain TDS rates which are being reduced from 5% to 2% in respect of certain sections. तो those sections please retain कि इन sections में amendments आई हैं, इनके लिए ये dates is very relevant. So those dates you have to remember. You have to remember those dates specifically. ठीक है? Accordingly you have to proceed. Then assessment procedure. Assessment procedure again is a very very important chapter. And your tax audit and ethical compliances, penalties में miscellaneous is again very important chapter. Your everything is important. Nothing is, I'm not saying कि this is not important, this is not important, but आप उस पे मेन फोकस रख सकते हो. यू कैन टेक अप एज योर स्ट्रॉन्ग पॉइंट किया दिस इज द एरियाज वेयर वट एवर टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चन आर बीइंग आस्क्ड आई कैन आंसर इट. जरूरी नहीं है ना, इट्स नॉट नेसेसरी कि 100 मार्क्स का क्वेश्चन आ रहा है उसमें, इट्स नॉट नेसेसरी कि आपका 100 मार्क्स इज सच पेपर कि इट इज नॉट अप्रोचेबल. There may be some questions, and definitely I will say कि at a professional level such type of question should also be there which really test you thoroughly of your profession. इस तरह के क्वेश्चन होने भी चाहिए. तो आप मान लीजिए 10 to 20% का अगर आ भी गया, 10% का आ गया, तो स्टिल आपके पास 90 मार्क्स इन योर हैंड. अगर आप 90 मार्क्स का भी बहुत अच्छे से अटेम्प्ट करके आ रहे हो, यू नो द थिंग्स, देन डेफिनेटली 90 में से आपको 60-70 मार्क्स आराम से यू विल फेच इट. कहीं नहीं गए आपके मार्क्स. जितना करो एग्जाम में बेस्ट करो, अच्छे से करो. ठीक है, टाइम मैनेजमेंट इज अगेन वेरी क्रूशियल, क्योंकि जब आप एमसीक्यूज पे अगर आपने बहुत टाइम स्पेंड कर दिया और डिस्क्रिप्टिव के लिए कम टाइम रह गया तो इट विल क्रिएट अ प्रॉब्लम. तो डोंट डू मेक योर एनालिसिस कि मुझे इतना ही टाइम एमसीक्यूज के लिए रखना है, बट एमसीक्यूज में बी एक्स्ट्रा श्योर कि वॉट एवर ऑप्शन यू आर चूजिंग यू आर मार्किंग सेम इन योर OMR शीट. सच टाइप ऑफ सिली मिस्टेक should not happen. You have to be extra careful, right? So यहाँ पे मैंने बोला TDS chapter, assessment procedure, tax audit again, miscellaneous provision 269S, T, SS. These are really really very important chapters. Some or the other way these are being tested. This is a general pattern I am telling you. And your appeals and revision, go through it. Appeals and revision also. Your income tax authorities may, if I say, the search and survey, collection of information. These are the crucial things which are keep on generally testing in your examination. फिर हम बात करते हैं सेक्शन 3 की. सेक्शन 3 again is a very scoring part of your subject, very very scoring part of your subject. If you say non-resident taxation, poem है, poem is very important. Section 9, without section 9, without your section 6, that is your residential status, non-resident taxation cannot happen. So these are the fundamentals, foundation of your non-resident taxation, that is your residential status, your section 9 scope of total income, and your poem. जहाँ पे पोएम की बात करें मैं रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस की, इफ यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट देन योर पोएम इज रिलेवेंट फॉर योर फॉरेन कंपनीज. दिस इज अगेन important thing. It is not being tested for such a long time. It is possible they would be testing you on this poem aspects. And residential status, again, it's quite little bit, they are making the provisions over the year very complicated, because you have to keep in mind so many things while determining the residential status. So go through it carefully. जो भी आपने charts बनाने हैं, whatever the notes you prepare, please make sure कि आपको कहीं से भी कोई confusion नहीं रहे. ठीक है? Non-resident taxation में then your 115A, section 115A is very, very, very important for non-residents. ठीक है, आपका TDS provisions की बात करें तो TDS provisions which are specifically related to the non-resident taxation are covered in that chapter only, chapter 21 में, because TDS का we have already covered in chapter 13 which are pertaining to the residents, but there some table is given in your study mat. If you go through that table, जहाँ पे we have clearly mentioned कि ये वाले provisions and these are the provisions we are going to deal in your non-resident taxation. So those TDS provisions are again very important. And this thing, फिर आपका 115A I am talking about because royalties, FTLs, specific rates are given in your 115A chapter. And the specific sections, that is chapter 12A, your 115AC, AD, many things are there. A compiled list is there. तो नॉन रेजिडेंट को प्रैक्टिस करने के लिए पहले मैंने रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस की बात करी, देन आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट द स्कोप ऑफ टोटल इनकम section deemed to scope of total income section 5, then your deemed to accrue or arise in India section 9 में everything is important. Significant economic presence से ले लो आप उठा के business connections you start, and then your what we say कि the gifts or in cash or in the monetary terms to a resident, non-resident or to a not ordinarily resident are also deemed to accrue or arise in India in their hands, right? So these are again very important things in the non-resident taxation. 115A के rates you have to remember. 115A के rates क्या हैं? Plus 195. अगर आपका question 195 पे आया है suppose, ठीक है? अगर आपका question, if they have asked a question on section 195 and you are supposed to apply the provisions of 195, you must be very sure that sum first should be chargeable to tax. The term chargeable to tax in the hands of non-resident, then only the TDS provisions under section 195 are applicable on to a non-resident. अब आपको chargeability, from where you will come to know the chargeability of a non-resident? From section 5, section 5, section 9, all those things you will come to know the chargeable to tax in the hands of a non-resident. Once it becomes taxable, then TDS is required to be deducted at the rates in force as provided in section 95. But apart from this section 95, there are specific sections are also there in the act which are related to the non-residents. ठीक है? Those sections go through carefully. उसके बाद rates of tax are the rates which are forming part of your schedule to the Finance Act. ठीक है? वहाँ पे rates दिए हुए थे for relating to the 195 की rates in forces क्या होंगी? वो rates you have to remember. Basically, these are more or less everywhere. If you compare, the rates are more or less similar to the rates which are provided in section 115A. 115A जो है, it is providing that the income is taxable at a particular rate in the hands of that non-resident or a foreign company. Non-resident not being a corporate associate or a foreign company. उस case में the rates are given in section 115A as a tax rate to determine the tax liability of a non-resident. But if I'm talking about 195, see 195 if I'm talking about, it provides for a rates in force. The TDS is required to be deducted at rates in force. ठीक है? अब जो rates in force है, they are given in the Finance Act. Every year's Finance Act's schedules and its going to change. You have to check those rates, but they are more or less similar to the 115A rates. Other than this, in case of a resident, only tax is required to be deducted at a TDS rate, applicable TDS rate. Whereas in case of a non-resident, TDS is required to be deducted at the rate applicable plus surcharge if applicable or HEC. यहाँ पे बच्चे मिस्टेक कर देते हैं. वहां पे क्या होता है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल सम इनकम इज गिवन इन द हैंड्स ऑफ अ नॉन रेजिडेंट, राइट, एंड इज चार्जेबल टू टैक्स ऑल्सो, एंड इट्स गिवन इट्स नेट ऑफ टैक्सेस. नेट ऑफ टैक्सेस में लिखा हुआ है. तो आपको जब इनका इनकम ग्रॉस बेसिस पे यू विल इंक्लूड इन द टोटल इनकम, right? Later on, if the question is asking to compute the tax payable, then you will going to reduce the TDS amount. But for including that income in your main computations, then you have to include on a gross basis. ठीक है, उसके लिए आपको जो रेट अप्लाई करना है उस टाइम पे यू हैव टू वेरी एक्स्ट्रा केयरफुल कि जो टीडीएस का रेट है, सपोज आपका 20% था, अब 20% पे आपका एटलीस्ट, अब आपकी इनकम है 5 लाख 2 लाख इस तरीके से, तो आपको सरचार्ज तो नहीं लगा होगा. अब आपको यहाँ पे प्लस 4% पे करना है, तो 20.8% से करके यू हैव टू डिटरमाइन द ग्रॉस अमाउंट ऑफ दैट इनकम. ठीक है, नॉट 20%, यू हैव टू ग्रॉसिंग अप विद यूजिंग द HEC. ठीक है, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर है इन डूइंग दिस 195 के TDS की क्रॉसिंग अप करने के लिए. प्लस ये आपका नॉन रेजिडेंट टैक्सेशन का वी हैव डिस्कस्ड. नाउ द अदर चैप्टर इज योर ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग. ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग अगेन इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट चैप्टर, जहां पे आपका ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग के प्रोविजंस हैं. मेनली ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग की हाउ यू आर बीइंग टेस्टेड. ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग में ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग की टेस्टिंग होती है आपकी मेनली डिटर्मिनेशन ऑफ ALP. ठीक है, आपका वन ऑफ द मेथड यू हैव टू अप्लाई टू डिटरमाइन द ALP. Then the secondary adjustments, basically secondary adjustment 92CE is very relevant. 94B, that is disallowance of interest expenditure based on their EBITDA. ठीक है, बट वहां पे थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट्स आर ऑल्सो इक्वली रिलेवेंट. तो रिमेंबर दोस थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट्स की आपका क्वेश्चन फॉर एग्जाम्पल एक MCQ आ गया एंड दे आर आस्किंग यू टू कंप्यूट द डिसअलाउंस अलाउ अप्लीकेबल ऑन अ पर्टिकुलर इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट. बट आपका जो अमाउंट है, दैट amount paid to the non-resident as an interest does not exceed the 1 crore rupees. 1 crore ही नहीं एक्सीड कर रहा, वो आपका कुछ अराउंड 50 lakhs दिया हुआ है सपोज इंटरेस्ट की पेमेंट. अब आप देखोगे कि आपने कंप्यूटेशंस तो कर दी फटाफट एबिटा दिया हुआ है क्वेश्चन में, आपने 30% ऑफ दैट एबिटा यू हैव कंप्यूटेड एंड यू हैव सीन कि एबिटा आपका आ रहा है कुछ अराउंड 30% एबिटा करके आ रहा है 30 lakhs का, और आपने पेमेंट करी 50 lakhs की, तो 20 lakhs की पेमेंट इज डिसअलाउड. आपने आंसर टिक कर दी 20 lakhs डिसअलाउड. बट आप देखोगे कि दैट इज नॉट एप्लीकेबल एट ऑल, राइट. आपने देखा कि एज पर द थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट the 94B itself is not applicable because it is applicable only once the amount of interest exceeds 1 crore rupees. Similarly, for case of secondary adjustment also, if the primary adjustment amount exceeds the threshold limit of 1 crore, then only the secondary adjustments has to be made. तो ये है टीपी में. आप देखोगे APA प्रोविजंस का इन लास्ट ऑफ द RTPs वी हैव कवर द APA प्रोविजंस. इन द MTP इफ यू सी यू विल फाइंड दैट APA का क्वेश्चन भी आपको मिल जाएगा फर्स्ट सीरीज में कि व्हाट टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चंस आर बीइंग आस्क्ड बेस्ड ऑन द APAs एडवांस प्राइसिंग एग्रीमेंट्स में किस तरह के क्वेश्चंस आर बीइंग गिवन. सो दैट MTP सीरीज 1 यू कैन प्रैक्टिस to have to be aware of what type of questions can be asked in the APA provisions, because आपका secondary adjustment if you see or the primary adjustment if you see, lot many questions on secondary adjustment are given on 92 CE in your model test paper, in your study material, in your case scenario booklet also. Some of the MCQs are covered, those you can definitely practice from there. ठीक है, ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग की यू कैन डू दैट प्रैक्टिस. देन योर डबल टैक्सेशन रिलीफ, वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट चैप्टर, वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट चैप्टर बिकॉज इट्स इन जनरल प्रैक्टिस की इधर 6 मार्क्स का क्वेश्चन उस पर जनरली डिस्क्रिप्टिव फॉर्म में आ ही जाता है एवरी टाइम इट कम्स. तो वहां पे आपको जो सबसे ज्यादा ध्यान रखना है इन दिस डबल टैक्सेशन रिलीफ, मेनली जहां पे आपका DTA नहीं है, at that time you are required to compute the relief under section 191 your 91 section 91, and where the DTA is there then you have to compute as per foreign tax credit. You have to apply the foreign tax credit and this DTA whatever be the tax credit kaise milega aapko, what rate it is being taxable there, you have to compute the lower amount. For practicing purpose, the RTP also contain such questions ki how to compute the foreign tax credit. You have to be very careful ki foreign rates kya lagenge, what rate the income would be converted into Indian rupees for the purpose of making it taxable. So 115A rule 115A is given as annexure to your study material of module 4. Please go through that rate, go through those rates, क्योंकि आपका सपोज कोई भी इनकम दिया है, some date is given and the foreign exchange rates are also given to you. You have to apply what date of the foreign exchange for converting them into the Indian rupees for the purpose of making it taxable. So remember to go through the rule 115A or your 115A and your but I'm saying rule 128 also. Let me show you. Let me just show you where you have to go. Go through your study material. The annexures are given. If I'm not wrong, it's rule 115. Just let me 115. Rule 115. It is for rate of exchange for conversion into rupees. Right? This is annexure 1. It is very very important. If you see यहाँ पे which month rates are being given, आपके जो RTP में question है on this conversion के लिए, if you see the question number when your RTP is this is 20th number question if I'm not wrong. Yes, 20th number question is on that question. If even if your MTP series 1 में भी जाओगे तो इन सब rates की testing ही है. जब आप इनको when you practice those rates तो easily you will able to remember also कि what date conversion rates are have to be applied for computing the this income. ठीक है. Rule 128 is also given. What rate you will be applying? This annexure. Rule 128 foreign tax credit. How to compute the foreign tax credit. This is also given. Please go through it and make a note or a tabular form of remembering these relevant provisions for you. Okay. Then we have discussed your double taxation relief provisions and your advanced ruling. Advanced ruling is very very small chapter and it's very easy to do the revision of prepare for the chapter. One or the other question may be asked ki what are the applicable fees is there, when whether assessee if making an application can he withdraw that application, or who all assessees can make the application for advanced ruling, board for advanced ruling now it is. So those kinds of questions generally being asked from the advanced ruling. You will get an idea from the study material, from the model test paper also. Certain questions are given on the board of advanced ruling. ठीक है, उसमें मिल जाएगा आपको. Then apart from these chapter, there are 4 chapters are there. इस पे आपकी जो testing होगी, आपको whole paper is application oriented. Whole paper is application based, analysis and application based. Other than the last 4 chapters, there one or the other question would be asked. For 6 marks from these last 4 chapters, for 6 marks, it is purely knowledge-based question. That means you have to just bring out the itself the concept of the relevant thing in your answer sheet. So it's a theoretical question, will be of 6 marks. Okay? From the last 4 chapters. Otherwise, whole of the paper is your application and analysis based. They would not be any direct questions would not be there in the paper. So this is about the section wise weightage, how you can prepare. You can just take the section 3 कि yes section 3 के मेरे पास 4 chapters हैं. आज मैं chapter मेरे को double taxation relief का करना है अच्छे से, then non resident के provisions करने हैं. So make your own planning. You have to plan yourself कि किस तरीके से मुझे अब इसको revise करना है. I'm assuming कि you have done your studies. Now you are in the process of revising the things. ठीक है, इस तरीके से you have to revise. Any questions, students? It's really I will be very happy if I can answer your any of the questions. You have any questions up to this? Dhruv, Anita, Urvi, Shubham, Anirudh. Any questions relating to this? Whatever we have covered. Anything which you would like to ask? No? So shall we proceed further? At least give a thumbs up so that I can proceed further. 1 to 2 generally comes from Shubham. Yes, question number 1 and 2 are generally comes from PGBP. But of course, they might test you some income from house property के भी आ सकते हैं अगर उन्होंने 115 BA, BAB का दिया या फिर आपकी कोई rental income से the company is having some income from renting of properties, that also can come in your question. Other sources may be aa sakte, it's not, but generally they are from that. PGBP or capital gains or these things. Deductions they might test, because इस बार क्या है ना आपका जो इसमें mainly the concession tax regimes are very very important for you. So please go through the concession tax regimes. ठीक है? Let's I think we can practice some of the this section concession tax regimes ka we can do. So this is the we have discussed ki what type of questions would be asked from the first section 1, that is from compulsory question. It would be testing your evaluation synthesis skills, asking you to compute the total income and tax liability of company, cooperative society, and also may contain the requirement to recommend solution to optimum tax liability. Optimum tax liability, if I am talking about, that means you have to compute as per the normal provisions as well as per the concession tax provisions. उसके आप देखोगे practice करने के लिए there are many questions being given in your model test papers. किस तरीके से आपको proceed करना है इनकी questions को present करने के लिए, ठीक है? So that you can do remembering the concession tax regime, remembering what are the exemptions, deductions are not allowable while computing this income as per the 115 BAA, 115 BAB. You have to remember exactly what are the deductions, exemptions are not available. Okay? Then only you will able to compute and compare the both the normal provisions and these concession tax regimes. MCQs of MTPC, are you finding anything difficult in those MCQs, Urvi? Or just I have planned this, we can cover the amendments or we can cover the MCQs in the next sessions, because we are going to have a series 2 also for Success C exams. Today I have planned ki we will be covering the amendment portions basically. In case of specifically, if you are feeling ki some of the MCQ are not able to attempt, you definitely can ask your query through our portal. From your portal, you can please ask your query that this MCQ are not able to arrive at the answers. Or in the next time, we will be covering those things. So I am telling you 115 BAB. Points to remember, these all we have already discussed. Ki, the 115 BAA or BAB, if I talk about what is relevant for you, the tax rates are very, very important for you, because different tax rates are applicable. 115 BAB में, BAA में. However, the surcharge rate specifically, even though your total income does not exceed 1 crore, the surcharge is applicable at the rate of 10%, irrespective of your total income. This is very, very important. ये आपको याद रखना है while making the comparison. 115 BAB की, if you talk about this 115 BAB, आपको first year में only you can opt in the year of commencing your business. Right? And that is applicable only if those companies are established, manufacturing companies are commenced their business on or before 24. यही dates लिखी होगी उसमें. They have set up and register on or after this date, इस date के बाद और this period. इस period में अगर वो setup हुई हैं and registered and commenced their business on or before 31/3/24. So that means your previous year is 23/24, your assessment year is 24/25. तो एक बार तो कंपनी ने already claim कर लिया होगा. Definitely BAB अगर किया होगा, if the company has opted in the first year of commencement, then in the next year वो continue करना पड़ेगा, because they cannot again withdraw from those optional regimes. They cannot come back, right? तो आपको ultimately फिर यहाँ पे comparing का question नहीं arise होगा now. In this assessment year, that comparability between the normal provisions with 115 BAB would not arise, because last year company ने incorporate या commence कर दिया होगा. Those company who have claimed in the first year of commencement of business are only entitled to continue to claim the concession tax regime of 115 BAB. So though that comparison part would not be asked with respect to BAB, however BAA के साथ में it is possible. Because BAB may need not to be, this kind of condition is not there. The existing companies can also come and take the benefit of 115 BAA. But however, once they have come and opting for BAA, then they cannot go back. So it's a very critical decision for the company. whether to opt for 115 BA or not. So this kind of questions may be asked to determine the tax liability to optimize the tax liability, right, of a company. In that form, the questions can be asked. What important is the surcharge rate. The rate is 15%. अगर उन्होंने BAB पे questions directly would be there कि compute the tax liability and total income and tax liability of a company, right, of a manufacturing company. It should be a manufacturing company, domestic manufacturing company or electricity company, generation company would be there. Here, any domestic company can be opt for BAA. एनी काइंड ऑफ एमसीक्यूज दे कैन ऑल्सो बी आस्क्ड. ठीक है, कुछ तरह का आपका एमसीक्यूज भी पूछ सकते हैं इसमें कि एक कंपनी है, उसने कमेंस बिजनेस ऑन दिस डेट, कैन दिस कंपनी ऑप्ट टू क्लेम फॉर बीएबी और बीएबी कर सकती है नहीं. तो दिस टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चंस कैन ऑल्सो बी आस्क्ड बेस्ड ऑन दिस कंसेप्ट बेसिकली. सो रेट्स ऑफ सरचार्ज में आप देखोगे 15% का रेट था इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ मैन्युफैक्चर ड्राइव्ड द इनकम फ्रॉम अ मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एक्टिविटी, 22% in respect of other income which are incidental to the this thing other than the manufacturing activity, and then 30%. 30% is a specific case. 30% is a specific case where the rate of 30% is applicable. Plus at the special rates specified under chapter 12A, that is LTCG, STCG, वहां पे आपका अलग रेट ही लगेगा. ठीक है. देन इन केस ऑफ BA की बात करें तो 22% का रेट है. प्लस you have to forego certain deductions and exemptions which are not available. So that list you have to remember it, right? इस तरीके से you have to compute. Then if you are the company is paying tax as per the BAA or BAB, their MAT provisions are not applicable to them, right? This is chart is given ki when the what rate is applicable, that I have explained ki 15% is from income from manufacturing or production or generation. If it is a special rate of tax income, then it would be as per the 112, 112A, 111A, and 22% on income for which no special rate is provided, like income from house property or income from other sources. That 22% rate would be applicable. Here, this is a specific case where the company is entering into such transactions which are allowing the company to earn profits more than the ordinary profits it are. Because what is the main intent of the company? To increase their profits. Because they will enter into such transaction with their A's or with their related parties, so that because they are chargeable at the rate of 15%, they will try to increase our profit and reduce the profits of the other entities. So in that case, if the AO determines such incomes, those incomes would be chargeable to tax at the rate 30%. What is the tricky point here is? The tricky point here is, for example, if this question I would like to ask you. Suppose and this entity, suppose XYZ company is there, which is purchasing goods worth rupee 50,000, worth rupee 50,000 के goods purchase कर रही है for 30,000 पे. क्या कर रही है? 30,000 पे परचेज कर रही है गुड्स. ठीक है. अब यहाँ पे कंपनी क्या करेगी? 50,000 के गुड्स हैं, 30,000 पे परचेज कर रही है. तो इससे क्या होगा? इसका प्रॉफिट्स इज गोइंग टू इंक्रीज. प्रॉफिट्स इज गोइंग टू इंक्रीज. बट यहाँ पे 40A2 नहीं लगेगा. आप देखोगे कि मार्केट रेट था 50,000 का, लेकिन कंपनी का इंटेंट क्या था? कंपनी का इंटेंट था यहाँ पे अपना परचेजेस करके 30,000 पे परचेज करके अपना प्रॉफिट्स को बढ़ाना. ठीक है. अगर यहीं पे रिवर्स होता, वाइस वर्सा होता, सपोज 50,000 के गुड्स मार्केट वैल्यू एंड कंपनी इज परचेजिंग फॉर 70,000, व्हाट विल हैपन? 40A2 विल कम इनटू पिक्चर कि आपको 50,000 के गुड्स कंपनी ने 70,000 में परचेज करे. ठीक है. सो अब यहाँ पे यू जस्ट टेल मी, इफ द कंपनी इज परचेजिंग गुड्स ऑफ 50,000 for rupees 70,000, whether the provisions that income would be taxable at the rate 30%? Is it? Am I clear with my question? My question is, if the company is purchasing goods worth rupee 50,000, ठीक है, 50,000 for ₹70,000. Market value of those goods is 50,000, but company is paying 70,000 for purchasing those goods. Yes, 20,000 का क्या होगा, will be disallowed as per 48(2), but that would not be taxable at the rate 30%, because ये जो 20,000 का अमाउंट है, अगर आपको डिसअलाउ कर देंगे, ठीक है, तो आपका क्या होगा, आपका प्रॉफिट इज गोइंग टू, योर प्रॉफिट इज गोइंग टू इंक्रीज, राइट। अब आपने क्या किया, यहाँ पे 20,000 का आपने 70,000 आपने क्लेम किया था, आपको 20,000 का डिसअलाउ कर दिया, ठीक है, आपने 70,000 अपनी बुक्स में किया था पहले आपके, और यू हैव डिसअलाउड दैट पोर्शन, 48(2) विल बी एप्लीकेबल, बट उसकी वजह से आपका क्या हो गया, प्रॉफिट्स इंक्रीज हो गए, तो यहाँ पे इट वुड नॉट बी टैक्सेबल एट द रेट 30%, ठीक है, इट वुड नॉट बी टैक्सेबल एट द रेट 30%, दैट्स व्हाट आई एम सेइंग, वांट टू से, जहाँ पे 48(2) लग जाता है वहां पे 30% का बेनिफिट नहीं, मतलब इट वुड नॉट बी टैक्सेबल एट 30%, लेकिन जहां जिस ट्रांजेक्शन की वजह से कंपनीज टेंड टू इंक्रीज देयर प्रॉफिट्स, उसकी वजह से क्या कर रही है, अपने प्रॉफिट्स को इंक्रीज करने की कोशिश कर रही है, वहां पे दैट इनकम वुड बी टैक्सेबल एट द रेट 30%, दैट्स व्हाट दिस इज अ ट्रिकी पॉइंट एक्चुअली। So now section 115BA की बात करें तो it is taxable at the rate 20%, 22% specific rate है, there is no further bifurcation between 15, 22, 30, it's 22%, or special rates, or the special rates of tax LTCG under section 112, 112A, or STCG under section 11A, whatever be the rates applicable, at that rate it would be taxable. देयर इज नो रेस्ट्रिक्शन ऑन द डिडक्शन, यहाँ पे कोई रेस्ट्रिक्शन नहीं डिडक्शन में। सपोज यहाँ पे सम इनकम इज देयर विच इज चार्जेबल टू टैक्स अंडर द हेड हाउस प्रॉपर्टी, सपोज इट इज चार्जेबल टू टैक्स अंडर द हाउस प्रॉपर्टी, तो आपको पता है स्टैंड डिडक्शन इज अवेलेबल। हाउस प्रॉपर्टी में आपकी रेंटल इनकम है सपोज 1 लाख की, तो 30% का आपकी स्टैंड डिडक्शन मिल जाएगी। लेकिन अगर कंपनी इज पेइंग BAB, ठीक है, if the company is having some income also from house property, that 30% standard deduction is also not available. This they want to say the whole income of 1 lakh from rental income is chargeable to tax at the rate 22%. ठीक है, that kind of restriction is not here. If the company is having income from this thing house property, that time the company would be eligible for standard deduction of 30%. Similarly, in case suppose company is having some dividend income, in respect of dividend income, interest expenditure is allowable to the extent of 20% of that amount. So that would not be available if the company is paying tax as per 115 BAV. That would not be available. Whole of the dividend income would be taxable at the rate 22%. ठीक है, similarly यहाँ पे that would be allowable, that there is no restriction. If some interest expenditure is there in respect of that dividend income, that is allowed. This is important point. Then next is your, this I have already discussed ki what type of questions would be asked in case of charitable trust. This is from subsection 2 of section 1. So huge weightage is there for 3 chapters, that is charitable trust. Basically charitable trust mein if you see the application oriented questions of some 2 or 3 independent questions would be there. Right, testing, for example, one of the question is given in your this thing, you know, RTP also there, the question is only based on the corpus deduction. If the charitable trust is receiving donations with a specific direction that they shall form part of the corpus, then that amount would not be included in the total income, subject to the condition that the trust has invested that amount in a specified modes prescribed under section 11(5). 11(5) में अगर क्या है तो वो corpus donation would not be subject to tax, ठीक है, would not be included in the total income. इस तरीके से corpus donation अगर वो किसी और को देती है from the accumulated amount, that is not allowed as application. Please go through the RTP question. One of the question is there. You go through the RTP question. It is purely because there are certain confusion. If the company is receiving the donations with a specific direction of being form part of corpus, तो उस टाइम पे क्या ट्रीटमेंट होगा उसका? If the company is giving donation to the other trust, then what would be its treatment? Because 85% only is allowable as application of income, right? 85% ही allowable है. अगर वो accumulation से देती है, that is also not allowable as application. So that kind of differences are there. Basically, what are the relevant things which you have to keep in mind if the donations or such kind of things are given in your exam, so that RTP questions you please attempt that to have a proper understanding of in relation to corpus donations. The question number 16 of the RTP based on that. So charitable trust का आएगा. Full-fledged question on 115 TD can be asked. TD में specifically is on accredited income. Some of the questions are given in your study mat. Do solve those questions. How to determine that amount of accredited income आप कैसे determine करते हो? How to determine that income, and that income is taxable at the rate MMR. Maximum marginal rate पे taxable होगा. That income is taxable at the MMR rate, right? MMR rate में means आपका this is your 34.944% MMR rate पे होगा. Since applicable surcharge rate is 12%, यहाँ पे आपका क्या रहा 12% पर surcharge लगेगा, higher not 37% पे, ठीक है? MMR is defined, लिखा हुआ है Finance Act में. If you go through, that is clearly mentioned. In case of 115 TD, that would surcharge at the rate 12% is applicable, irrespective of the income. Whatever be the accredited income, that would be taxable at a MMR rate. So do practice those questions. ठीक है. इसके बाद apart from this, independent case scenario can also be asked on corpus taxation, taxability of anonymous donations. Anonymous donations के लिए separate provisions are there. 115 BB, C, BB, C, BB, your BBI provisions, specified income का, those are very very relevant provisions. ठीक है. उसके relation में please go through the मेक अ नोट कि व्हाट टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चंस कैन बी आस्क्ड, किस तरीके से क्वेश्चंस पे आ रहे हैं इसमें चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट में. तो आप खुद से यू प्लीज प्लान अकॉर्डिंगली किस तरीके से आपको इसके स्टडी करना है. Then REITs, InVITs पे they can ask some questions. ठीक है. InVITs and REITs पे generally they ask certain questions. Pass-through status is there कि what income is taxable in the hands of the unit holders, what income is taxable in the hands of REITs itself. Those kinds of provisions are very very important for you. What is the rate applicable for a resident? What rate TDS is required to be deducted by a REIT in the hands of a non-resident? ठीक है. What income distributed to the unit holders is taxable in the hands of unit holders as an income from other sources. That amount, it's an amendment, last year's amendment and this time's amendment. This is very important. इस तरीके से you have to practice for the REIT provisions. Then equalization levy के लिए you can practice. Equalization levy के lot many questions are given. Section 2 में again, what type of questions would be there in case of TDS, deductions from collection total income, recovery of tax में, case scenario based MCQs can be asked. Your 2 or 3 application oriented questions can also be asked from these things, and this is about, we have already discussed कि क्या क्या important है इसमें. What is your strength, those areas you have to identify. So practice, more emphasis should be placed on those areas to have a confident कि yes, this type of questions, anything you may ask from this chapter, I would be able to answer those things. So accordingly you plan and make the strategy. Chapter 3 में I have already discussed that non-resident taxation से related what type of questions can be asked. They can be asked in the form of computation tax liability of non-resident, general provisions, or case scenario based questions can also be asked. Double taxation में I have discussed कि FTC, foreign tax credit, 115 rules can be discussed. From transfer pricing, already discussed all these things we have covered. Then what are the points to remember that we have discussed in our discussion कि DTA are inclusive. This is important. This is important point. This is important point and it skips. If you have noted, in case of double taxation, what is happening? We are having DTAs, right? We are having DTAs, and section 90 subsection 4 provide that whatever with the beneficial, whichever is beneficial, the provisions of the act or the DTA, whichever is beneficial, that would be applicable on a non-resident. That would be applicable on a non-resident, right? अब आपने देखा कि DTA, suppose आपको पता है the FTS, the foreign tax, your FTS, fees for technical service, suppose it is not related to a PE, but it is chargeable to tax, and it is under the agreement with the central government, then it is chargeable to tax at what rate? As per the provisions of the act. I'm asking you this question. The foreign this fees for technical service, right? There is a fees for technical service of suppose 1 lakh, and it is as per the agreement of the central government, right? And it is not related to any PE. Then at what rate it would be taxable? 10%. Any other question? Any other answers? Dhruv, Anita, Shubham, it would be taxable at what rate? Suppose foreign tax this fees for technical services, and it is complying with the condition that it is in as per the agreement of the central government, and it is not effectively connected with any PE in India, then at what rate that FTS would be taxable as per the provisions of the Income Tax Act? I'm just simply asking a one question. 4%? Why, Shravanan? What is this 4% rate? At what rate it would be taxable? 10% plus 4%. Any other answers? I'm waiting for your answers, students. 10% rate was earlier. I don't know why you are confused. See, this is visible. Is it visible? For royalties and FTS, there is table is given to you in your chapter this. Here it's mentioned clearly that the the income of a foreign company or non-corporate includes any income either royalty or FTS. Then other than income referred to 144 DA. 44 DA is with respect to PE. If it is effectively connected with the PE, then it would fall within the section of 44 DA. But if it is not, other than that income, that would be taxable at the rate 20%. 10% rate was very, it's last year it was amended. Last year that amendment came that FTS or royalty are now taxable at the rate 20%. Please again revise your things. Okay? Refer the latest study material only. Huh? Don't get confused कि 10% है. ठीक है 20% पे टैक्सेबल होगा. ठीक है टैक्सेबल होगा. मैंने यहाँ पे टीडीएस का रेट नहीं पूछा. 4% लगेगा. आपको टोटल टैक्स लायबिलिटी डिटरमाइन करोगे एट दैट टाइम डेफिनेटली 4% रेट ऑल्सो हैज टू बी अप्लाई ऑन दैट एंड सच एज ऑल्सो इट्स डिपेंड्स ऑन द टोटल इनकम. ठीक है सपोज आई एम नाउ आस्किंग योर क्वेश्चन कि the rate now you are knowing the rate is 20% as per the provisions of the Income Tax Act. Similarly, in the DTA also provides for a 20% rate. Okay, the DTA are also providing for the same rate, okay, 20%. So now you tell me, would you go to opt for DTA or you will pay the tax as per the provisions of the Income Tax Act? Because the same rates are applicable. Which would apply? The DTA rate or the income tax? Yes. Very good. Yeah, you are right now. You got it. So see students, that's what I want to take. DTA because it is Dhruv, we will discuss government only proposed this equalization levy at 6%. It's not relevant for you anyway in the for May 25 examination, right? They are under the proposing stage only or not at all relevant for you this attempt. Okay? So मैं बोल रही थी DTA rates are inclusive of surcharge and cess. तो अगर आपका suppose 20% rate वहां पे लिखा हो तो आपको वहां पे क्वेश्चन में जब आप कंप्यूट करोगे टोटल इनकम टैक्स लायबिलिटी then at that time you need not to apply surcharge and cess. ठीक है वहां पे नहीं करोगे. अगर आपको as per the act determine करना है then only you will take into consideration the surcharge and cess. ठीक है ये आपका कब relevant हो जाता है. Do you have to keep in mind this thing. That's what I want to say. This is critical point. Then there are certain provisions which are applicable for non-resident as well. Since certain sections, it's important to note that applicable to each and every section to non-resident. Since certain sections are applicable to resident assessees only to resident assessees. For example, 80TTB. अगर आपको सपोज डबल टैक्सेशन रिलीफ का क्वेश्चन आ जाता है, ठीक है, डबल टैक्सेशन रिलीफ में द एज ऑफ द पर्सन इज 62 दी हुई है and he is having some interest income on fixed deposits also. So now when you are providing and the person is not paying tax as per 115 BAC क्वेश्चन में ध्यान से पढ़ना कि what whether the tax is paying under the 115 BAC or the person has opt out of 115 BAC. Accordingly your answer would vary. ठीक है, अब आपका 100 आपको पता है इंटरेस्ट का कुछ इनकम है उसका, दैट इज टू द एक्सटेंट ऑफ 60,000. सपोज 60,000 is the interest on FDs he got. Now you know for a senior citizen you would be eligible for 80TTB deduction. Definitely would be eligible to the extent of 50,000, right? So can he claim that 80TTB deduction? Can he claim a non-resident having an age of 62 years and having a interest on fixed deposits, can he claim deduction under section 80TTB? Can he claim? Mr. X is having an of not allowed. Yes, for non-resident 80TTB not allowed. So this you have to keep in mind कि जब आप डबल टैक्सेशन रिलीफ का क्वेश्चन कर रहे हैं, बिकॉज आपको वहां पे you have to determine the tax liability. Based on your tax liability, your relief also is to be computed, right? तो आपको बहुत केयरफुली देखना है. अगर क्वेश्चन में एज उसकी 62 years है, he is a person of above 60 years, then if you go and read the definition of senior citizen, they have included only those persons who are resident persons. ठीक है, due to that reason it's not available to TTB. So certain deductions are there which are available to only resident assessees. सिर्फ resident assessees को ही मिलेगा. ठीक है, अदर इस बार की कमेंटमेंट भी है जब भी आप उन्होंने ग्रैंड फादरिंग दी है, फॉर एग्जांपल इन केस ऑफ ट्रांसफर ऑफ लैंड एंड बिल्डिंग और बोथ, they have given the benefit to an individual or an HUF who are resident in India. They have the option to pay tax at the rate 20% after applying the CII, that is inflation index benefit they can take, and they can just compare their tax liability as per the new rates of 12.5% without indexation and 20% with indexation. That benefit they have extended only to individual and HUF who are resident in India, not to a non-resident. Keep in mind, resident hai, that includes resident but not ordinary resident also. ठीक है, resident includes certain benefits specifically है, but resident अगर लिखा है जहां पे भी provisions में, तो that means it is extended to resident but not ordinary resident as well. ठीक है, और so वहां पे specific benefits है. इसी तरीके से if you see the exhausted limit benefits, the against the long term capital gains, right, against the short term capital gains, they are extended to only residents, not to a non-resident. So you have to be very extra careful. For example, आपको कोई MCQ based question आ जाता है and they have covered the total income comprising of long term capital gains and this thing long term capital gains है जिसमें आपको exhaustive basic exemption limit है, उसकी income there is no other income. So that benefit of exhausting the basic exemption limit against the LTCG is not available to a non-resident. ठीक है, नॉन रेजिडेंट को नहीं मिलता. तो आपको यू हैव टू बी वेरी एक्स्ट्रा केयरफुल जब आप पढ़ रहे हो, तो मेक श्योर कि यू कीप इन माइंड दीज स्मॉल पॉइंट्स सो दैट व्हाइल अटेम्प्टिंग द क्वेश्चंस इन योर एग्जाम्स दोज थिंग्स शुड क्लिक टू यू कि दिस इज अ नॉन रेजिडेंट एंड दिस टाइप ऑफ बेनिफिट इज नॉट एक्सटेंडेड टू अ नॉन रेजिडेंट. ठीक है, this is the about, and this we have already discussed कि while grossing up the income, rate inclusive of HEC has to be applied. This we have discussed. this we are not going to. Up now, how much time is left? It's already 3:50. Let me take you through the amendments. बहुत जल्दी से just take a look of our overview of the amendments. Basically, I think this is crucial thing. That's why I want to just take you through the amendments very fastly. We are not going to delve into in detail what are the amendments. In our next session, in our BoS for Success Series 2, we will be trying to cover the practical questions. Practical questions from the MTP, from the RTP. I will ask you, please that thing be prepared and do solve the RTP questions also. Do solve the RTP questions because more or less many questions are based on the amendment provisions. ठीक है? DTA की बात करें, this 115 BAC. What you are asking, please guide on exam paper pattern whether part B will be from international taxation, especially question 6. Tax audit, of course, tax audit is very much relevant. This Vargunan, it's not necessary कि पार्ट भी हमेशा आपका इंटरनेशनल टैक्सेशन से ही होगा, बट जनरल ट्रेंड यही रहा है कि जो आपका क्वेश्चन का पार्ट ए एंड पार्ट बी दे हैव कैटेगराइज. जो पार्ट ए है इट इज फ्रॉम डायरेक्ट टैक्स लॉज और जो पार्ट बी है वो इंटरनेशनल टैक्सेशन से आता है, बट दे मे चेंज ऑल्सो. इट्स अ जनरल पैटर्न, राइट? इट्स अ जनरल पैटर्न कि द पार्ट बी इज फ्रॉम इंटरनेशनल टैक्सेशन, नॉट स्पेसिफिकली क्वेश्चन 6. इट्स नॉट फॉर ओनली क्वेश्चन 6. It's followed in the remaining questions other than the compulsory question. This kind of trend they are following for the optional questions. Basically, the part B belongs to the international taxation. ठीक है? Default tax regime में this is very important. Please remember the latest slab rates because इसकी testing आपकी mainly double taxation relief के time पे they can be asked you to solve this. They have given कि the assessor is opting for assessing paying tax under the default tax regime. Assessing paying tax under the default tax regime. If nothing is mentioned, then you have to solve the question as per the default tax regime. ठीक है? Then what are the rates? You have to remember those slab rates. There is a change in the slab rates basically this year from the last year. So remember those rates. It's 3 lakh to nil, then 3 lakh to 7 lakh, it's 5%, 7 to 10, it's 10%, 10 to 12, 15%. You have to remember this. It's यहाँ तक आप करेंगे 1,40,000 it is coming. It's not 1,40,000. I am not remembering. You have to compute it. ठीक है, इसको कैलकुलेट कर लेने. डू कैलकुलेट इट एंड व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इट्स कमिंग. इट्स 140 और समथिंग आई थिंक. यू प्लीज कैलकुलेट इट एंड देन अंडर डिफॉल्ट टैक्स regime. Yeah, 140. Okay. Thanks. It's 140. Last time it's 150. They have given the benefit of 10,000 or something, right? So apart from this default tax regime, what are the slab rates के अलावा what they have made the amendment is the standard deduction. The standard deduction आपको पता है normal scheme में it is as per the normal provision it is 50,000, but in case of default tax regime it is 75,000. 75,000. Don't get confused. अगर आपका income from salary computed लिखा है, if it is written computed, then you need not to apply this standard deduction. अगर कुछ भी नहीं लिखा है, salary income of this person is given, pension income of the person is given, then you have to provide. If it is 115 BAC, it's 75,000. You have to provide for it. ठीक है? Additionally, the maximum deduction of family pension. This is important point. That's what I am telling you कि आपको ध्यान रखना है कि सिर्फ default tax regime में 75,000. Otherwise, it is 50,000. Family pension की if you are talking about, it's 1/3 of your pension or 15,000, whichever is lower. So यहाँ पे it's 15,000 को increase किया इन्होंने 25,000 से. Apart from this, 80 की deductions are available in case of central government and state government. Already the employer's contribution is allowable to be claimed up to 14%. But for employee other than state government or the central government, they have extended this benefit of up to 14% only under 115 BAC. Only under 115 BAC. So there is no restriction on claiming this employer's contribution towards the NPS while doing this 80 2, because first hand pay you have to include the whole contribution in your salary. Then again you will provide for the deduction. So it's up to 14%. यहाँ पे what is important here? Here it's mentioned about the employees. ठीक है? Similarly, based on this thing, there is 36. If you see, there is provision 36 148. 36(1)(4)(a) is there, where the employers are also eligible to claim the deduction in respect of making the contribution on behalf of the employees towards the national pension scheme and system up to extent of 14%. This is this year's amendment, and that point is covered in your RTP's question number 14. If I'm not wrong, you can refer question number 14 of the RTP. And in the model test paper also many questions are there which are dealing with this extended limit of 14%. Okay? So 14% of your salary amount is allowable as a deduction in respect of employers' contributions towards the national pension scheme under section 36(1)(4)(a). ठीक है? So that is very important. जो आपका corporates के लिए भी include होता है, employees के लिए भी important है. यहाँ पे कोई आपका ये नहीं होता कि this thing, it's not like that कि whether employee is opting to pay tax under the default tax regime or not. It is irrespective of the facts what the employee is doing. The employer would be eligible for deduction at the rate 14%, and there is no specified date कि from which date. It is for the whole year. ठीक है? So आपको you have to keep in mind basic salary plus DA है. Then you have to include both of them for the purpose of computing this 14% deduction amount. Then again, there is a reduction of tax rate. It is very, very important for foreign companies. It is reduced from 40% to 35%. बहुत important है. ध्यान रखिएगा कि it is being reduced from 40% to 35% for a foreign company. कोई भी question they may be asked. It is again very important that increase in deduction limit in respect of remuneration. In respect of remuneration to working partners, they have increased the limit. Okay, and this is applicable for whole of the year. It's not restricted from particular specified period. For the purpose of knowing this amendment, question number 15 is given in your RTP. 15 is given in your RTP. Please refer that question. In model test paper also certain questions are given which are based on this amendment. So earlier it was 3 lakh, but it was being increased. First limit slab is increased from 3 lakh to 6 lakhs, right? And it's higher off than 3 lakh or 90% of the book profit, and the balance is 60%. Okay? This type of amendment. This is again income from letting out of residential house property. What have happened ki specifically this explanation being inserted in section 28, which is providing that the income from letting out of residential house property. Why I'm saying this residential house property is very important, because there are certain doubts in respect of, they're clarifying if a person is owning a residential house and earning some income from letting out of that property, that income would be taxable only under the head income from house property. Income from house property, right? Not under the head PGBP. Suppose कोई company है and it is having some commercial properties. Suppose commercial properties भी हैं, but उसका main business is not, the main business of the company is not letting out of the properties. ठीक है? That income would be taxable under the head house property. अभी तक हम वही कर रहे थे. इन्होंने बट रेजिडेंशियल हाउस प्रॉपर्टी के लिए दे हैव क्लियरली सेड, क्योंकि देयर इज अ केस लॉ इन आवर स्टडी मटेरियल, दैट इज चेन्नई प्रॉपर्टी, रायला प्रॉपर्टीज. देयर द सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज डिसाइडेड कि इफ द मेन बिजनेस ऑफ द कंपनी, that is memorandum of association clauses have specifically specified that main business of the company is letting out of the properties. In that case, those income would be taxable under the head PGBP. However, now with this explanation, in case those properties are residential house properties, that also will come and go to be taxable under the head house property only, unless those property are commercial property. So that case laws are still good only in respect of commercial properties, and the assessee's main business is for letting out of the properties. Right? This is important. So, आप देखोगे case law में, if you go to the chapter 3, in the end में Chennai properties and Rayala property, there is a note is given where it's been clarified. Right? This is the inference which we can draw from the amendment and the this case law. Then period of holding for classifying assets, now they have been simplified basically. आप देखोगे तो but ये benefit for your attempt is not available basically. You have to remember both the period of holding. Otherwise from 23rd/7 with effect from 23/7, right? On or after. Keep in mind on or after exactly 23/7 अगर transfer की date दी हुई है, then the new provisions are applicable. So for before के लिए the period of holding of the earlier times where earlier provisions is important. You have to remember those things. And from 23rd July, keep in mind 23rd July 24, the period of holding applicable is different. It is now only 2 periods of holding are applicable, that is 12 months and 24 months. There is no concept of 36 months. However, up to 23/7, you have to keep in mind the 36 months period also. राइट स्पेसिफिकली आपको इसको कैसे याद कर सकते हो, जो मुझे समझ में आया, आप देखोगे इन्होंने अभी के पूरा अभी न्यू क्लॉजेस में, इफ यू गो एंड सी दी लिस्टेड सिक्योरिटीज दे हैव क्लासिफाइड यूनिट ऑफ इक्विटी ओरिएंटेड फंड एंड जीरो कूपन बॉन्ड. These 3 things, any listed of securities listed in recognized stock exchange, that can be any kind of securities, other than debentures or bonds. Keep in mind, I'm telling you other than debentures and bonds, because there is a specific provisions for debentures and bonds, that is in section 50, section 50AA. जहाँ पे if the transfer takes place for debentures and bonds after 23rd/7, then they will be always be classified as short-term capital asset. Okay. So security listed in a recognized stock exchange, including listed units of business trust और यूनिट ऑफ इक्विटी ओरिएंटेड फंड और जीरो कूपन फंड, इसके लिए आपका पीरियड ऑफ होल्डिंग इज 12 months. Exceeding 12 months, then it would be long-term capital gains. If it is equal, less than or equal to 12 months, it would be short-term capital asset. Why I'm telling? Because यहाँ पे if you see unlisted securities other than shares की बात करें तो वहाँ पे other period लगता था, that is 36 months का. और listed units of business trust की बात करें, there is a period of 26 months is applicable. Listed units of unit दिस बिजनेस ट्रस्ट जो कि अभी आपको 12 months का पीरियड है, ठीक है, पहले 36 months का था, ठीक है. और अनलिस्टेड सिक्योरिटीज अदर देन शेयर्स, अनलिस्टेड शेयर्स के लिए 24 months ही था, ठीक है, बट यहाँ पे नाउ द अनलिस्टेड शेयर्स के लिए 24 months का लगेगा. वो 24 months ही था, 24 months ही रहा, बट इन केस ऑफ अनलिस्टेड सिक्योरिटीज अदर देन शेयर्स के लिए 36 months का पीरियड था, नाउ इट इज 24 months. दिस इज बेसिक डिफरेंस बेसिकली. लैंडर बिल्डिंग के लिए 24 months ही लगेगा, अनलिस्टेड शेयर्स के लिए 24 months ही रहा आपका. सिर्फ एक चेंज जो आपको ध्यान रखना है वो लिस्टेड यूनिट्स ऑफ बिजनेस शेयर्स का, बिजनेस ट्रस्ट का रखना है और अनलिस्टेड सिक्योरिटीज का रखना अदर देन शेयर्स, अदरवाइज एवरीथिंग इज सेम. आप जो लिस्टेड सिक्योरिटीज यहाँ पे भी 12 months ही था, यहाँ पे भी 12 months ही था, यूनिट ऑफ इक्विटी 12 months था, यहाँ पे भी 12 months, जीरो कूपन बॉन्ड 12 months. तो दिस वे यू हैव टू रिटेन इट, इन दिस वे यू कैन रिटेन इट, ठीक है. सो इंपॉर्टेंट इज विद रिस्पेक्ट टू डिवेंचर्स एंड दिस अनलिस्टेड बॉन्ड एंड डिवेंचर्स की बात करें, अनलिस्टेड bonds and debentures which is transferred or redeemed or matured on or after 23/7 को किया है उसने, then it would always be short term capital asset irrespective of the period of holding. Period of holding is very very important to determine what is the nature of the capital asset. It's long term or short term, because according to its category the tax rates are dependent, right? Apart from this period of holding, there is an increase in tax rate on STCG on specified financial assets, that is in 111A. Whatever the assets are given in 111A, that is equity shares or a unit of equity oriented fund or unit of business trust, are taxable at the rate 20% now with effect from 23/7. ठीक है, 20%. They have increased the rate from 15% to 20%. So the transfer is taking place before 23/7. Before 23/7, it would be taxable at the rate 15%. If it is after 23/7 on or after, then it is 20%, right, in respect of those assets. Then uniform rate, they have just removed the difference. Otherwise, आप देखोगे कि 112A में the 10% rate is applicable. For 112, it's 20% is applicable. Still for this year only, for this assessment year, these both will continue because of this specified date applicability. So now they have bring it to at the uniform rate of 12.5%. ठीक है, 12.5% है, 112A में भी और 112 में भी after on or after 23/7. Indexation benefit. So long they are providing the indexation benefit, now they have removed the benefit of indexation from with effect from 23/7/24, 23/7. But that's what I'm telling you. Grandfathering is provided to resident individual and HUF on transfer of land or building. इसके रिस्पेक्ट में आप देखोगे क्वेश्चन नंबर 14 ऑफ आरटीपी विच इज फॉर अ कंपनी. ठीक है, क्वेश्चन नंबर 14 ऑफ आरटीपी इफ यू सी, वहां पे कंपनी हैज सोल्ड सम ऑफ द कैपिटल असेट्स व्हिच आर chargeable to tax on or after this 23/7. In respect of those, no indexation benefit is provided while computing the tax liability. But there is another question dealing with respect to this amendment for an individual who is a resident. उसके respect में what is happening when you compute the total income. अगर आपको question सिर्फ total income का पूछ रहा है, please make sure if the question is asking you to compute the total income, then even if you are computing the long-term capital gains on a capital assets which are transferred on or after 23/7, then also you need not to apply the indexation. ठीक है, टोटल इनकम कंप्यूट करते समय आपको इंडेक्सेशन प्रोवाइड नहीं करना है. दिस यू हैव टू चेक only while determining the tax liability. Only while determining the tax liability. अब इसका क्या इम्पैक्ट पड़ रहा है? अगर आप बिना इंडेक्सेशन के somehow you are doing it, definitely your total income is going to increase. ठीक है, और टोटल इनकम से क्या होगा? Your total income is going to have an impact on surcharge, because surcharge rate is dependent on your total income. ठीक है, आपने when you are computing the total income, you need not to give the indexation benefit, even in case of individual or HUF who are resident in India. But while determining their tax liability, you have to then at that time you make a comparison between both the things. You will compute tax at the rate 12.5% without indexation, and then 20% with indexation. Whatever be the tax liability, whichever is beneficial, you will go and opt for it. Right? आप वही पे करोगे. But in case the assets is acquired before this date, 23/7 से पहले की acquisition होनी चाहिए, और long term होगा तो definitely 2 years पहले होगा. Land and building के केस में, only land and building के केस में this benefit is given. ठीक है. Now, so for this purpose, question number 4 that will give you an idea how to go about for assessee other than individuals or HUF, or for individual or HUF who are resident, then how you will be proceed to answer that question. You will have to refer question number 21. Question number 21 of RTP. Please refer that question. ठीक है, ये आपका टेस्टिंग आपका एमसीक्यू फॉर्म में भी हो सकता है, इसी टाइप के क्वेश्चन दे कैन आस्क यू, बट बी वेरी श्योर जब टोटल इनकम कर रहे हो ना, तब चाहे वो रेजिडेंट हो नॉन रेजिडेंट कोई भी हो, उस टाइम उसका इम्पैक्ट अफेक्ट नहीं देना है इस बेनिफिट का. बट आपको टैक्स लायबिलिटी के टाइम भी यू हैव टू कीप इन माइंड कि व्हाट इज द it's an individual or HUF, it's a company, or it's an other than individual or HUF who are not resident in India, who are not resident. This benefit is not extended to non-resident. Non-residents को benefit नहीं दिया. Concessional tax rates, this is being given in your study mat also. I don't think I need to cover it. It's already we have discussed ki what are the rates. Without benefit it's 12.5%, with it is 20%. All these things please make be extra careful while doing all these things. ठीक है, और जो आपको LTCG के रिस्पेक्ट में no deduction is available to you. Then 112 में the important point is कि they have increased the exemption limit from 1 lakh to 1,25,000, right? They have increased that limit, but it is not applicable. That increased limit is not applicable only for the assets which are transferred on or after 23/7. It is applicable for the whole year. Even though you are transferring the assets, suppose if I am a person and I have transferred some of the assets on 10th of May 10th of May, long-term listed shares, I have sold something. So this 1,25,000 still I can be eligible. I am eligible for this 1.25 lakhs with the tax rate of 10% also. ठीक है, अगर आपका after 23/7 है, then also it is applicable for the same 1.25 lakhs with the increased rate of 12.5%. This is important point. ठीक है, फिर आपका that angel tax was abolished. that closely held companies were earlier taxable on the amount of issue of shares. If the consideration of the issued share exceeds the face value of share, then excess is taxable as income from other sources. That has been abolished. It's being to promote the boost the startups and all. इसके लिए आप देखोगे बहुत डाउट्स हैं कि कब से अप्लीकेबल है. दिस इज अप्लीकेबल फ्रॉम असेसमेंट ईयर 25-26. ओके, इट इज अप्लीकेबल फॉर यू ऑल्सो. इसके लिए आप देखो क्वेश्चन 14 में एक ट्रांजेक्शन दिया हुआ है विच हैज नो इम्पैक्ट बिकॉज इट इज नॉट रिलेवेंट नाउ. यू नीड नॉट टू कंप्यूट द इनकम इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ दैट ट्रांजेक्शन. ठीक है. Tax on buyback share, it's a very interesting concept and you have to be very extra careful. I think we are running short of time and we can close this session because इसके respect में आप देखो case scenario 2. I'm just telling you from where you can practice these amendments. Case scenario 2 which is testing all these amendments. Basically आप देखो long term capital gain की भी testing है वहाँ पे, default tax regime की भी testing है, buyback of shares की भी testing is there. What the government is doing basically here, यहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट ने बोला जो भी कंपनी बाय बैक करेगी, whether it's listed, unlisted, whatever be the shares are bought back by the domestic companies, that whole consideration would be deemed as dividend and chargeable to tax under the head income from other sources. सारा का सारा आपका whole consideration वो आपको उसी टाइम पे टैक्स कर देगी. जो आपकी कॉस्ट ऑफ एक्विजिशन थी, द कॉस्ट ऑफ एक्विजिशन ऑफ दोज शेयर्स व्हिच आर बॉट बैक, दैट वुड बी कंसिडर एज योर कैपिटल लॉस. ठीक है, एज योर कैपिटल लॉस इट विल बी कंसिडर एंड दैट यू कैन सेट इट ऑफ अगेंस्ट द अदर लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन्स एंड ऑल. राइट. सो आपको शॉर्ट टर्म भी हो सकता है, लॉन्ग टर्म भी हो सकता है. दैट कैपिटल लॉस कैन बी इज अलाउबल टू यू सेट ऑफ इन द नेक्स्ट टाइम ऑफ इनकम अगेंस्ट द अदर लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन्स और लॉस. राइट. तो अभी तो आपको पूरा टैक्स देना है, उस पे टीडीएस इज ऑल्सो अट्रैक्टेड. 194 में TDS is also attracted. So one of the case scenario में आपका TDS की टेस्टिंग भी हुई है. How to compute this total income की टेस्टिंग हुई है because some capital losses are arising due to this buyback and that cost of acquisition is considered as your capital loss. ठीक है. So that you practice and remaining, I think this is an example which I want to take, but it's not that difficult. It's very simple one and you can easily just practice from that thing. I think we can some questions if you have, you can definitely ask. What are you asking? How to get 30 marks? You have to practice a lot. You have to remember the key points. आप जब करोगे ना, when you are studying, that time you have to analyze कि this is the crucial points. Those can be tested in your exams. That analysis जब भी आप पढ़ रहे हो, when you are studying, you please do this kind of analysis on your own. ठीक है, आपको खुद से समझना है और अपने पॉइंटर्स अपने आप से खुद से जॉट डाउन कर लेने हैं कि दीज आर द पॉइंटर्स व्हिच यू हैव टू रिमेंबर व्हाइल प्रैक्टिसिंग, व्हाइल अटेम्प्टिंग एनी एमसीक्यू है या फिर डिस्क्रिप्टिव ऑल्सो. ऑफकोर्स डिस्क्रिप्टिव में तो आप कह रहे हो कि आपके स्टेप मार्क्स हो जाते हैं, यू विल गेट द मार्क्स इन स्टेप मार्क्स, बट एमसीक्यूज में यू हैव टू वेरी एक्स्ट्रा केयरफुल, लुक एट द इंफॉर्मेशन केयरफुली कि व्हाट इज द इंफॉर्मेशन गिवन, वेदर द पर्सन इज अ रेजिडेंट, वेदर द पर्सन इज अ नॉन रेजिडेंट, वेदर द पर्सन इज एन इंडिविजुअल, HUF, व्हाट ऑल आर द रिक्वायरमेंट. रीड द रिक्वायरमेंट ऑल्सो. समटाइम्स इट हैपेंस कि हम ऑप्शंस देखते हैं, हम ऑप्शंस पढ़ते पढ़ते इतने लॉस होते हैं, हमें रिक्वायरमेंट ही नहीं पता, क्वेश्चन में पूछा कुछ होता है, ऑप्शन कुछ और टिक कराते हैं. तो इस टाइप की मिस्टेक्स ना हो, तो रीड द रिक्वायरमेंट गिवन इन द क्वेश्चन. अभी तो आपको देखोगे आपके पास मॉडल टेस्ट पेपर है, इतने सारे बैंक ऑफ क्वेश्चंस हैं, यू कैन इजीली प्रैक्टिस. बहुत सारे MCQs हैं, केस सिनेरियोज हैं, एवरीथिंग इज गिवन, RTP है, वो यू प्रैक्टिस. How to present the answers, go through the last year suggested answer, but definitely you have to keep in mind the amendments. Basically that's what I want to say, because आप कहीं confuse मत हो जाना कि last time की amendment क्या है, इस time की amendment क्या है, because आपके old provisions are also relevant this year and the new provisions are also relevant for this year in respect of certain provisions. So that dates, be extra careful, look for that information first in your exam. ठीक है. Any other questions, students? Or I think we can close the session. In the second series, BoS for success sessions, we will be taking up the practical questions from the RTP. And please do the RTP, whatever questions I told you, those also along with the other questions. Please do practice the RTP on your own without looking at their answers. ठीक है, without looking at your answers you have to solve the RTP on your own. It is important to mention case loss. No, of course, it's not. There would not be any marks allocated to report the case loss or the section numbers, but definitely it add value to your answers. अगर एग्जामिनर देख रहा है कि इस बच्चे ने बिल्कुल सही सेक्शंस कोट किए हैं, एक चीज कोट की, डेफिनेटली आपको लगता है कि यार इसको 3 दे रहे हैं तो इसको 1 मार्क और देना चाहिए. So it add value to your answers. But make sure if you are not remembering the exact sections number, do not write it. Do not write the section numbers. Simply write ki what provision it is. If you are remembering the section number, then you quote. Provisos, definitely it's very difficult to write the provisos, to write the explanations. If you are remembering, it's well and good. Jitna aap practice karoge, certain sections are such ki which really very important to write also. For example, TDS ke provisions, and they are, you have to learn those provisions only with the help of these section numbers. Okay? So, on that way you have to. Case loss के लिए case loss के लिए, if you see the case loss question basically asked in 4 parts. That is, your first is your determine the issue. First you have to determine the issue. You have to determine the provision applicable. Nowadays, when I appeared for those my exams, at that time that kind of requirement are not clearly coming out in the questions. Now though they have starting writing, you have to answer the question in this manner, right? So first you have to determine the issue, then provision applicable. ये तो आपको बहुत ईजी है, आपको इश्यू पता है, प्रोविजन तो आप लिख ही सकते हो एटलीस्ट. आपको एनालिसिस, अगर आपको केस लॉ रिलेट कर पा रहे हो, राइट दैट एनालिसिस रैशनली ऑफ द केस लॉ एंड देन कंक्लूजन, बिकॉज कंक्लूजन हैव इट्स ओन मार्क्स. अगर आपका 4 नंबर का क्वेश्चन है तो एटलीस्ट आपका हाफ या 1 मार्क तो उसमें होता ही होता है कि whether the contention of the assessing officer is valid or not, whether the assessor's contention is valid or not, whether the treatment of this is justifiable or not. This kind of, you have to write it clearly. It's justifiable, not justifiable. Whatever be the rationale you have applied on, right? वो करो. आपको not to write कि this is based on ruling, नई citation नहीं आता रहा. You do need not to write it. But first issue determine. Issue में ये नहीं कि पूरा fact आप लिख लो. आपको issue मतलब किस बेसिस पे है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल आपने देखा होगा किस तरीके से क्वेश्चन है, वेदर इट इज कंसिडर एज अ रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर और नॉट, क्या ट्रांजेक्शन थी, उसका इशू यू हैव टू डिटरमाइन. इशू अंडर कंसिडरेशन क्या है, देन क्या प्रोविजन अप्लीकेबल हो रहा है. समटाइम्स इट हैपेंस कि जब कोर्ट भी एनालिसिस करता है तो सेक्शंस के बेसिस पे दे एनालाइज दी थिंग्स. सो ऑन दैट बेसिस यू कैन प्रोसीड टू एनालाइज द इशू, right? उसको कर सकते हो. You can bring out the rationale of the High Court also. You have a underline key, this is the rationale, and then thereafter you have to conclude that question. In that manner, you have to attempt this case law based question, right? Okay. Now I think we can wind up the session. Thank you so much for your patience listening. And in case of any query, definitely you can write to us on your BoS through your BoS knowledge portal itself. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.